Well, I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody, and then we're going to bring Broze in. He's going to introduce everything, and then he's going to pass it back to me. I'm going to give a brief presentation, and then we're going to hear from some folks that have really had some successes in the Freedom Cell growth to start. I think there's some awesome examples that we can all emulate, and then we're going to open up the floor, and people can raise their hand, and then we will recognize you. And the idea is we want to share ideas, we want to share strategies, and we really want to focus on how we can build out the network so it can benefit each and every one of us individually and collectively. And then of course, the chat room is always going to be active. And that could be a place also for people to post questions or just to conversate the whole time. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to @DBroze Live Free, Derrick Broze, the one and the only, and he's going to get us started. Go ahead, Derrick. You should be able to screen share. I made you a co-host. You there? You with us, Derrick?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, cool.
I don't know if my video is frozen or what, but let me see.
It's probably the NSA.
Yeah, it's the NSA.
All right,
all right. Yeah, I think I can do the screen share. Okay, everybody, what's going on? Thanks for coming and joining the 5th International Freedom Cell call. Woohoo! It's growing. I don't remember where the numbers were last time we did this, a month or more ago. I know, John, I saw you post something like 2,600. I think we're actually up to 35, almost 3,500 now, people who've joined the website. And there's, probably 400 people or so who are pending still, because sometimes people don't check their spam where this thing goes, which is a problem that we're working on, trying to avoid things going into your spam inbox. But if you do try to sign up and you don't get you don't get an immediate response, you can email me, and I've been manually activating people's accounts and all that good stuff. But it is growing. So even with the people who are pending, if those people step forward and join, then we'll have close to 4,000 people on the website, which is pretty cool, because this revamped version of the website's been around for less than just over 6 or 7 months. Maybe even, around that time period. So it's cool. We're growing, and I just want to go over a couple of website things real briefly, and then a couple of points about what's going on in the world and why freedom cells are important, and then I'm going to pass it on to John. But one thing I want to say is, for those who might have joined recently, if you see on the top here, it says cells, and then you see the drop-down menu, create a cell, or the cell locator map, view all that stuff. That is where you can obviously create a cell, what we call groups. And then over here on the find members, this is where you can find other people. So these are two completely different maps. So when you join, one of the things that it asks you to do when you create a profile is to update your location. So you can put Houston or whatever. Some people have asked. I don't recommend putting your home address or anything like that. Maybe just the closest town or whatever you feel comfortable with. But you have to update your location, and then you come here to the member map, and you should see yourself. But I think there's an add to the map feature or something like that, and the same thing with the cells. So when you're joining, people have said they haven't seen certain people in, say, Denver or whatever. You can search by the specific city you're in and a certain amount of miles. But I would just say click this submit and just see. It just shows you everything, so you can go to the whole map and see all the different people, which is, it's really exploding, and branching out all around the world. So then from there, you can go on there and you find people that are near your area. We've got some activity happening in Southeast Asia lately. That's been pretty cool. So we got people all over. And then you could come, if you didn't see anybody in your area, maybe you'd come here and you do the same thing on the cell locator map. It's basically set up the exact same way, and you search, try to find if there are active cells. And if there are neither of those, you don't find any other people or any other cells yet, I really want to recommend everybody to be the one to create that cell then, so that other people coming along like yourself who are looking for people, if they don't see anything, they're going to probably leave the website too. And I know it can be discouraging for some people who've been on for a long time and don't find other people. But I think that if you go ahead and just take that initiative and be the first one to create an online cell, call it whatever you want, call it whatever focus you think. Like if you're really into permaculture, make it the, Florida permaculture cell or whatever it may be. We got people in Madrid. And then other people joining will come and do the same thing. They'll search the cell map and they'll find you. And then there you go. Your cell has just doubled from one person to 2 people. And then you can start working together and just building from there. So yeah, make sure to really use that. I do want to emphasize that John's been great at getting these different channels set up. For those who don't know, let me see if I can show you. We have Telegram channels as well that people have been really active in. There's the Texas one. I don't have it open right now. We have the Texas one. We have the Freedom Cell Network in general. We have several other smaller groups, local, regional groups are starting to create their own Telegram channels. So, Telegram's a place to communicate. Obviously, we want people to use the website. And there's a whole social network aspect of it. There's a lot of people communicating, and that's good. Communication is part of building community. I know other people are like, hey, let's talk less and connect in person. And so that's what the maps are for, is for those of you who are really ready to start meeting people in real life and building these freedom cells. And I think that we're at a very imperative time where now the time for talk and no action is probably not here anymore. And, it's important for us to communicate, have that emotional connection, spiritual connection to recognizing we're not alone and all that great things that come along with that. And communicating and getting to know each other is how we decide if we want to work together and what projects we're going to build and all that. But also, I think we should really have a sense of urgency, if you will, with everything going on. And that's kind of where I'm going to go into now with the next few things I'm going to share about. I just want to really focus, I guess, from a real practical level of the realities that are quickly coming into view here with COVID-19 going on around the world. And I know we have people from across the US. As I was just showing you guys on the map, we have people from all around the world. So really just active just everywhere. That's why we call this an international freedom cell call. We've got people really active in India that we know of, in Australia and other places. So some people can't be on the call because of time zones, and we're trying to work on that. My point is that everywhere we're talking about, those places I just mentioned, India, Australia, New Zealand, the US, the UK, and the EU, are dealing with very similar circumstances in the sense of more and more mandates, not only for masks. I don't want to get into the whole kind of mask debate, but the focus of this is really restrictions on travel, I would say, restrictions on freedom of movement, of course, restrictions on freedom of speech, of what you can say online and what's acceptable to say. And then, of course, the increasing push for an eventual vaccine mandate that may or may not be mandatory. And again, whether or not whatever your thoughts are on vaccines and all that sort of stuff, that's not the focus. The focus here is, of course, people's freedom to choose when and what they want to do with their bodies and their families. And that freedom seems to be less and less popular here in the United States and many other places. So I just want to kind of point out that reality there, and just as an aside to that, about a week ago, USA Today ran an opinion piece, published it from two doctors, and it was really astounding to me that this would get published in the United States. It really shouldn't be, but it just to me shows that we're crossing a threshold here, where these doctors openly saying, it is an American thing to mandate mandatory vaccines. It's not unpatriotic, and people should be charged higher insurance premiums. People's kids should not be allowed to go anywhere to school. You shouldn't be allowed to work. All the things that some of us have talked about, immunity passports, the COVID pass, that company that some of you might work with at the airport called Clear, that lets you do, skip ahead of the line. I think if you do facial recognition or thumbprint, well, they're coming up as well with their own sort of immunity passport they call the Clear Pass, the Clear Health Pass, something along those lines. So all of these things are coming into existence very quickly. The world is rapidly changing. And this is one of the reasons that I believe freedom cells are growing in interest, and people are gravitating to this idea, because people really do see that community is the answer. I watched a video earlier today that I'm going to recommend. I posted it in the group. I'll share it in the chat for anybody who's interested. It's from the urban farmer Curtis Stone. Some of you guys may know his work, and he put out a really good video about what people are missing in the collapse. And the short version is basically saying people are too focused on having gold, silver, and crypto. And instead, they need to get skills. They need to have seeds. They need to have community. You need to be human capital yourself, make yourself valuable so that you can really survive any situation, not even kind of preaching doom and gloom, but just any situation, make yourself valuable in that way. So I just want to reiterate that we're at a point now where we probably should be spending just as much time as possible getting organized, connecting to people, digitally, of course, but in the real world and coming together. And we are going to hear from a couple people today after John presents who have been taking on the Freedom Cells idea, people who've been hearing me and John talk about it for years, who've been very successful in getting people organized, and that's taken time, it's taken patience, it's taken a lot of trial and error. So we're going to hear from some of them, and I think that's really exciting. The last thing I just want to say, just reemphasize, we're at a really crucial time, guys. Please make an effort for your own families and for your own people. This is not a doom thing. I think this is all about creating the worlds that we want. And I know that I want a better world than the one we currently have. And I want to live more in line with my values and closer to the planet, and use ideas like permaculture and decentralization, localization. And so to me, it's like, why not just let's live it? Let's create it right now instead of expecting anybody else to do it for us. And coincidentally, it'll help us if these types of people try to lock us out of their society, we can still thrive and survive and not be dependent on them and have to make tough choices. So yeah, last two things, two book recommendations. I've been posting these in the chat. This one is Creating a Life Together, Practical Tools to Grow Eco-Villages and Intentional Communities. This is like a Bible for a lot of the things that many of us are trying to do, especially those interested in getting land. Diane Leaf Christian, she's the one who wrote it. She's written several other books, and her and another woman, I believe, traveled visiting, I think, hundreds of intentional communities to put this together. And it goes through like organizing principles, economics, building, just so many different aspects of putting a community together. And then there's this other one that I first found 10 years ago, and it's just a really great resource. It's mainly focused on city living, but regardless of city living or not, it has a lot of really valuable exercises and projects you can do. And it's called Toolbox for Sustainable City Living. Toolbox for Sustainable City Living, a do-it-ourselves guide. And it's actually based on the work of some people that were from Austin, Texas, and did a lot of cool work there. So check those books out for those who are interested in getting involved. Please do use the cell map, add yourself to the cell map. And again, like let's get organized like never before. And I'm going to go ahead and pass it back to John. I need to make you host again.
No, I think I made you co-host,
okay.
So we should be
cool.
good.
Perfect.
Cool.
All right, man.
All right. Thank you so much at D Broze, Live Free, the one, the only. I got much gratitude for Derrick and the work that he does, as I know countless people do. And this whole freedom cell concept originated in my brain in 2014, 2015. And it was Derrick who took the idea and made it so popular and spread it all across the globe. So I'm definitely grateful that he managed to take what was just an abstract idea. We had a Freedom Cell intercadre group in Austin. It kind of fell apart due to some personality differences, which is why, of course, nonviolent communication and working well with other human beings is extremely important if this movement is to be successful. But it was still just an idea, something I talked about. And then Derrick really took it and gave it wings and gave it life. And now here we are, as he said, we have over 3,500 people participating. So that's really exciting. So today I want to talk about some of the more practical strategies for organizing the infrastructure of our social organization. But before I do that, I really want to point out what it is that we're doing here and how exciting it truly is. Like Derrick said, essentially what we are attempting to do, we're not attempting to do it, we're actually doing it, is create our own alternative means of social organization to replace, for us at least, the state, the government, to provide a means of fulfilling our wants and needs, supporting one another, defense, justice, food, health, whatever, you name it. I think if you're on this call, you're well aware of the problem. And so what we are aiming to do is build the free society that we all deserve. And I encourage everyone to adopt a big picture view. The enemies of liberty, the secret societies, the roundtable groups, they have generational plans, centuries long plans. And far too many people in the liberty community and the activist community really just focus, a lot of them are in a reactionary paradigm whereby they are responding to the tyranny of the day, whether it's coming from COVID-19, whether it's the real ID, whether it's the police brutality or whatever. And that just keeps us in a reactionary paradigm where we aren't bringing about our ideal goal. So what we aim to do here is, in the early stages, again, this was founded in 2014, 2015. Here we are just 5 years later. We're still in the infancy of this network, and already we've built it out to 3,500. So when I think about, and what gets me excited about the Freedom Cell Network, I'm a big fan of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And one of those is to begin with the end in mind. And so I'm always thinking about what this is going to look like when my 2 children are adults, when their children are adults. I want to see this network remain through posterity, whereby now it's relatively small, 3,500 people, people that are starting to organize the inner cadres. We're starting to see some middle cadres develop, but fast forward 10, 20, 50 years from now, and we are going to have an entire infrastructure organization with all sorts of services and satellite groups and everything built upon it. So that's always something that motivates me. And I hope that you guys think about that as you're working. It's really strong motivation to think about what this could be, what it will be, right, when we all participate. And that's also some exciting stuff to share with people that we're recruiting. So what I want to get into today is really the nuts and bolts of how we can build out this infrastructure. I'm going to share here in the chat group what we're calling the Freedom Cell Manual. And I know it's Google, and we all love Google and what they're doing, but we're still looking for a good alternative to utilize. But this is a working manual, and everyone can view it, share it, and everyone can also put comments. So if you want to put comments, it's kind of a collaborative effort. So we'll add the input, and it'll, I'm really looking for people that are building out the Freedom Cells so they can share best practices. So, we can have a hive mind where it's like a self-correcting organism, right? The cells, we're all part of the cells of a whole body, which is the Freedom Cell Network. And we can send information to one another in order to improve our efforts. And so this is the Freedom Cell Manual. Essentially, I'm going to share the screen here. You guys can follow along on your computer as well. Can everyone see what I'm sharing here? I guess I lost the chat. Where did the chat go? Chat. There's the chat. Okay, cool. So, and again, this is in its beginning phases. So maybe some of the folks are joining us, they're not really familiar with the Freedom Cell concept. Let me just give a quick overview, but it'll also help to underscore the nuts and bolts of how we build this infrastructure. And as you'll see, there's really a lot of benefits to this actual infrastructure. So Freedom Cells, in essence, are small groups of around 8 to 10 people working together for mutual aid, achieving common goals, and securing the sovereignty of group members. These inter-cadre groups, we call this the inter-cadre, then link up with other inter-cadre groups of around 8 to 10 people and form what we call a middle cadre. These middle cadre groups, which are generally 8 groups of 8, then organize into 8 groups of 64 in order to form what we call the meta-cadre. Now imagine the inter-cadre group being something that's hyper-local. As Derrick said, the real benefit is to meet up in real life, to be able to go work in the garden together, to be able to defend a household should there be problems, to be, the kids are raised together, so on and so forth, to share supplies, to train together, to go shoot guns out in the woods together. And so imagine the inter-cadre being as local as possible. And then the middle cadre is a group of inter-cadres that perhaps is spread out the southeast part of town or spread out over a city. For example, in Texas, we have a bunch of folks that have inter-cadre groups in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We have the inter-cadre group we have here in Austin. Derrick Broze has a lot of groups in Houston. So imagine the inter-cadre groups. And then in Dallas-Fort Worth, they'll slowly build out a middle cadre with multiple inter-cadre groups. And then we'll link up with the folks in Dallas and the folks in Houston and form our meta cadre. Now, one of the really cool things that I've been formulating and just thinking about is visioning how this will begin to grow. And the really cool thing about this infrastructure is it is resistant to centralization, and it's also resistant to bureaucracy, which is a problem that a lot of organizations and movements tend to have. And so imagine we have a middle cadre group of around 64 people in Dallas-Fort Worth. We have a middle cadre group. Maybe it's not as big as the one in Dallas-Fort Worth. It's 4 groups of 8, around 32 people. Then we have a middle cadre group, same thing, 32 people in Houston. Now, they link up to form a meta cadre. Now, as the numbers grow in these particular areas, eventually Dallas-Fort Worth will have its own meta cadre, because over time, there will be 8 groups of 64 spread throughout the Dallas-Fort Worth area, right? Same thing in Central Texas and in Houston. And so it still maintains the infrastructure of the smaller inter-cadre group, which works together on common goals. They meet up more regularly. They're more intimate with one another. And then the middle cadre group is like a concentric circle outside of that. It still maintains that infrastructure. It just essentially replicates itself and remains decentralized. And the beautiful thing is once we have enough numbers, one of the examples I always like to share of something that's a real world practical thing is a health share program. So again, what our goal here is to essentially replace the government as a means of organizing socially. And so one thing that the government, pharmaceutical, medical, industrial complex has is insurance. It's overpriced, it's dependent, it's largely in bed with allopathic Western medicine, pharmaceuticals, right? It's not something that serves people that think like we do and natural health folks. So I personally have a health share. I pay a couple $100 every month. If there's a emergency, it's covered. I pay up to $1,000, essentially like a deductible. And then everything over that is covered 100% by the health share program. I don't go to a primary care doctor. I'm not on any pharmaceuticals. So it's okay if I have to, a one-off thing. I pay $250 out of pocket. This is an organization. A lot of them are religious organizations. This one's a secular one. It's called Zion Health Share. But what I envision is as our numbers grow, we can utilize that strength in numbers to essentially create our own health share, whether it's an agorist health share or it's based on cryptocurrency with multi-signature addresses that unlock the funds to be used when a smart contract is fulfilled, or whether it's actually a legal entity or some sort of business that's operated by the Freedom Cell Network participants or whatever. As we grow, these are services that the network can provide to itself, essentially. Think about a private security force. Think about a arbitration service for if there's disputes, so on and so forth. We have our own Grow Food Network, all that stuff. So the importance of actually growing out this infrastructure is that it makes it more effective and efficient whenever we begin to do these big picture activities. Also, I always have it in the back of my mind, not everyone needs to go this far, but I imagine if you're as fed up with the status quo as I am, you would be open to this, that once we have the strength in numbers, let's say we have 10,000 people in a given political jurisdiction, or 25,000 or 100,000, and everyone at the same time simultaneously can declare their independence from the state, for example, and say that we are not going to be participating in the property tax anymore because we own our property. We don't want to fund what we have no use for, what we frankly find to be unethical. So our 10,000 people, we are going to opt out in unison, and then we are going to form a defensive shield against the state whenever we assert our sovereignty. Again, thinking big picture, but it's this infrastructure, it's this organizational makeup that will better enable us to assert our freedom, better enable us to more effectively and efficiently carry out our common goals. Common goals not only for the inner cadre group, which is on a small level and easy to do, but common goals when we have a meta cadre group of 544 people. It's through this infrastructure that we can communicate through consensus decision-making and make decisions as a whole group without voting, without 50% plus one, right? I'm going to get into that later and would love collaboration on how to engage a decision-making process, right? But that's some more advanced stuff that we'll get to when we build out. Just as a visualization, the inner cadre group is 8 people. So these are the individuals here. Middle cadre group is 8 groups of 8. These are 8 different inner cadres, 64. The meta cadre group is 8 groups of 64, 8 middle cadres, it's 512. Then eventually we have the Confederation of Freedom Cell groups, which is global, and we're essentially our own non-territorial, I don't use the word state, our own non-territorial entity, right? So yeah, like the Hanseatic League of City-States back in the day. Okay, so the real quick, maybe a lot of people ask why the number 8, and as you're recruiting people to join your middle cadre, to join an inner cadre, this is going to come up. So 8 people, essentially, we borrow that magic number from the work of John David Garcia. Many people in the Liberty Movement became aware of his work through Bob Podolsky's work. He wrote a book called Flourish, which is an excellent piece of literature. He talks about building octalogs. This is actually a visual representation of what he called the Titania Society, which I don't know if he's still building under the Titania Society, but imagine each one of these octagons here is an individual, and they're all working together. So this octagon, what we would call an intercadre, he calls an octalogue, is 8 people working on the vision and mission, 8 people here working on law, 8 people working on council of critics. And there's a contract, an ethical contract amongst all of those. But this is a cool representation also, because you can see this as 8 people, 8 individuals here, but this could also be 8 groups of 8 here. So each one of these is 64 people. And then this is the middle cadre. It's just a cool visual representation. But John David Garcia found that his highest aim was creativity. A lot of the folks on this call, myself included at least, one of my highest aims, one of my highest values to strive for in my life, to raise my children in this way, is freedom. One of John David Garcia's highest ethics, his highest goal, was creativity. And he found that a group with 8 people was able to achieve maximum creativity and cohesion as the group. The lower that you would get from 8, there wasn't enough ideas, there wasn't enough people to implement these ideas. The greater that you would be from 8, the more bureaucratic it would get. And then he said when it get to a number 15, then ultimately it would be unworkable. This is a quote from his book, Creative Transformation. And this is a little chart here with the scientific experiments that they carried out here. They also looked at variables like very low fear. Fearful people weren't able to be as effective or creative as the other ones. Couples are usually too small a group, 2 people. They find it easy to accept common delusions. Still, we are better off in a couple than we are alone. Groups larger than 8 soon begin to create hierarchy whose members find it difficult to treat each other with equal respect and to communicate on a personal level, soul to soul. It becomes almost impossible for groups larger than 15. Larger groups should be broken down into smaller groups, preferably of 8 each. And so this essentially is how we can maintain the tight connection and the tight bond and cohesion of the small group while still forming a larger network that's able, as I said before, to achieve common goals and ultimately to secure the sovereignty of group members. We don't have to have bureaucracy. We don't have to have hierarchy in order to achieve this. But as we will continue to see, as the network grows out, and again, this isn't something that we've necessarily realized. While we do have 3,500 people on the Facebook or on the Freedom Cells website, and we have hundreds of people in these little Telegram groups, so on and so forth, we haven't yet begun to realize the benefit of having this larger network, the benefit that could have on the individual and the group as a whole. So that's why we use the number 8, and that's why you can use it as a selling point when you're recruiting people. Okay, so this is really the nuts and bolts. There's a lot of people that have intercadre groups, and regularly people are reaching out to me, which is always exciting. You can reach out to me on Telegram, and they're like, hey, we just formed this group in Atlanta. I don't know if Brett's going to be joining the call, but we're hoping to hear from April today, who's in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. April and or Chris, they have essentially they have like a little middle cadre going, right? And I think they're going to be forming into smaller intercadre groups. And then we have Lisa Bowman, who's in the Oklahoma area, Tulsa, I believe. She's got an intercadre group that's going, and they're expanding beyond that. And then Brett is in Atlanta. They have like 15, 16 people that are meeting. They have started their first intercadre group. So hearing from all these people, I realized, okay, people need some guidance and some advice and some suggestions on how to expand this actual infrastructure. And so I put together this manual. And so there's 3 different ways that you can come at the development of an intercadre. You can either be an individual by yourself, what I like to call a lone wolf. That's actually a term I borrowed from the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security, a lone wolf terrorist. I also purposely chose the word freedom cell because it's provocative, like a terror cell. But note for any FBI or Department of Homeland Security or NSA, we do not condone terrorism. We do not condone the initiation of violence or aggression upon anyone. It's just a provocative use of words in order to stimulate interest and be controversial, I guess, whatever. People can call it whatever the hell they want, though. You can replicate, you can participate within the network and not call it freedom cells or anything. An individual without anyone in a group. Is someone writing on this? Did I piss off the FBI on that one? I don't know. Can you guys see the writing? It disappeared. Weird. Okay. So you can come at this from an individual. You can have a small group, not yet having 8 people, or you can already have more than 8 people in a group. Perhaps you already had a meetup group. Perhaps you already had an activist organization, and now you want to adopt this network and join up with this network. So if you're just an individual, the first thing to do is to go to the Freedom Cells website, freedomcells.org, and see if there's anyone in your area. The next thing to do is to, hold on, I'm going to see if I can disable the share stuff. Share, change, view. All right, everyone's just going to be able to view for now. I'll change it back later. So go to the website. If you're just a lone wolf, you're all alone, see if there's anyone in your area. If there's not anyone in your area, some great places to start is to imagine a concentric circle with you in the middle, and you're gonna want to go to your next circle, which is like your group of friends, your family, people you've known for a long time. The next concentric circle is people that maybe you don't know as well, maybe that you don't trust as much, but your associates, you go to meetups with them, you see them throughout your activities, so on and so forth. And try to find people of like mind. Now, for some people, it's going to take getting out of their comfort zone. Like Derrick said earlier, a lot of people are like, wow, this sounds like a great idea. I saw this video. I read this article about it. I'm going to go to the website. Oh, there's no one in my area. Whatever. I'll go back to watching videos and then they just kind of abandon it. And for a lot of people, it's going to take stepping out of their comfort zone. Not everyone is an extrovert. Not everyone likes to communicate. Not everyone knows how to break the ice with strangers or people that they don't know. So in order to really build this, it's going to take the work of all of us. And so if you are a lone wolf in your area, I challenge you to step outside of your comfort zone. And more often than not, you'll find when you're dealing with people of like mind, gardeners, preppers, liberty activists, in some cases, police accountability activists, folks that go to the gun range, so on and so forth, it's often easy to find common ground, right? And then when you find common ground, you can build shared value, working together, supporting one another based on shared values. Again, one of the key values of our movement, of our effort here is freedom. So you find somebody that's into freedom and all of a sudden they're like, hey, I thought I was the only one in this area as well. It's a lot easier to move forward and talk with those folks. We give some advice here on where to go to find people. You can go to meetup.com. You can check out Facebook groups. Maybe there's some prepper groups. Maybe there's some survival forums for your area. Libertarian meetups, prepper, survivalist groups, gardeners and farmers, homeschooling, unschooling if you have kids, or homeschooling, gun rights groups, police accountability groups. And those are some good places to start where you can kind of find people of like mind. Also, farmers market has a lot of people. Sometimes they tend to be more left-leaning progressive, but a lot of times there's some really cool people. Like me and my ex-wife would go to farmers markets, and this was before we were into cryptocurrency. It must have been like 2010, and we would try to get the farmers market vendors to accept silver dimes in exchange for their veggies. Many of them would like not know what the hell we're talking about and just think it would be a waste. But occasionally we'd come across someone that's like, oh yeah, I already will accept silver. You know, we got to do everything we can to get out of that stinking Federal Reserve. That's a crooked institution. And we're like, oh my God. So imagine if you're just going line by line down the farmers market vendor booth, you know, chances are you may find someone that's at least somewhat in line with this thinking, and then boom, hey, I'd love to share with you about this cool thing that we're doing. It's like a mutual aid group. We get together, we help one another, we grow food together, share seeds, share ideas. Can I get your email address? So on and so forth. So it takes getting out of your comfort zone and finding shared values and build shared value on shared values. So that's if you have one person. And then again, perhaps if you're the only person in an area and you just exhaust all the opportunities, maybe it's an opportunity to move, right? I know it's easier said than done to pack up your life and move, but the Freedom Cell website and the member map is a great asset resource for those that are looking to uproot and move to another area. You can preemptively go join a cell in Dallas, Fort Worth, for example, and start talking to the people there and say, hey, I'm thinking about moving. Any advice? Is there any jobs in town? Good area to move? What should I be aware of? So on and so forth. Okay, let's say you have a group of 2 to 6 people. You don't yet have that magic number 8. And again, it doesn't actually have to be exactly 8. 8 is ideal. Our group here in Austin right now, we have 6 people. We're looking to recruit a couple more. Some people have 9, some people have 7. This isn't like a top down, you have to do it this way type of situation. It's just, this is what's the best practice. Let's try to get as close to 8 as possible. If we begin to have 12 people, let's split it into 2 groups of 6, for example. But if you have 2 to 6 people or 2 to 7 people, I left out 7 here because if we have 7, you might as well have that be the inner cadre. When you have 2 people too, you can call that an inner cadre. You have the beginnings of the inner cadre group. When you have 4 people, you have the beginning of the inner cadre group. Maybe try to recruit some here and there. So what these 2 to 6 people can do is each one of them collectively, or better yet individually, can just go ahead and engage in the same strategies and ideas that I shared here if you're just one person. But more effectively, what you can do, as I said just now, individually, is you get your 4 people and then you task each one of them. You're like, all right, well, we're all going to go out of our comfort zone. We're all going to recruit 2 people, or we're all going to go out and find one other person to recruit. Or check this out. This is how you can go from the beginning of an inner cadre and jump straight to a middle cadre group. So you have 4 people, for example, or 6 people, for example. Each one of you guys commit. So imagine 5 people, we'll say 5 people. Each one of these guys says, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and build an inner cadre group. I'm going to 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 build an inner cadre group. And if all of y'all can achieve that, even if each of you recruit 4 or 6 people, now you effectively have a middle cadre group. Okay. So that's 2 to 6 people. If you have more than 8 people in a group, which is a lot of people, this was the folks in Atlanta. They had this situation. The folks in DFW with April and Chris have more than 8 people. And so I was advising them on how to split up the group, right? So if you have more than 8 people, you're already in a good place. Let's say you have 16 people. But then the question is, well, how do we split up the group? So this next part of the manual talks about the different ways to split up an already large group. Maybe you already have a big group like your Liberty on the Rocks group, or your prepper group, or your farming crew, or whatever. So the best way to split that up is through familiarity and trust. So maybe some of the people in that group are already, they know each other really well. They don't know the other members of the group as well, but they know them pretty good. So you start with who you're most familiar with, who you trust the most. And then everyone else can either join up together, or they, like I said before, they can start recruiting people, and then you have a middle cadre before you know it. Another way is through geographic proximity. So let's say you're spread all across Dallas, Fort Worth, or the Pacific Northwest, for example. Well, we're actually here in Seattle. We're here in Northern California. All right, so our group is going to form an inner cadre. Our group is going to form here based on Seattle. Okay, that's another way. Another way is based on shared interests. So you have a group of 24, 8 of them have children, and 8 of them want to pull their kids out of the public school system because they don't want them to wear masks all day. So maybe that group of 8 forms the inner cadre group, and they build around their children and peaceful parenting and supporting one another, and having all the kids go to one house for play dates so the other parents can go on a date or work on a house project or whatever. So around shared interests. Or maybe some of the group, they're like totally into guns and they just freaking love guns, and they love getting dressed up in camo and going out in the woods and doing drills and all that sort of stuff. So maybe they would be good to have a group. But conversely, on the other token, perhaps it's beneficial if there's a part of the group is way into guns, that they go and be part of the different groups, so there is some spread of the skills and they can teach other people, right? I want to point out too, when you have like 18 people and then you split up into 3 groups of 6, you don't abandon the original group of 18. You link up and form a tighter bond and in constant more communication with the inner cadre groups, but you still maintain the middle cadre group for cohesion, for supporting one another, for working together on common goals. Maybe perhaps the inner cadre group meets up once a week and the middle cadre group meets up once a month, or the inner cadre groups meet up monthly with themselves and the middle cadre group meets up quarterly. And then the last 2 ways you could do it is chronological. If it's just like, all right, we got into the group first, and then this guy came, and then the first 8 people, they have a group. The next 8 people, they have a group. Or you can do it entirely random. These aren't ideal, but yeah. And I'm going to wrap up here pretty soon so we can get some conversation going. Once you have your inner cadre group, some first steps, what do we do? Now we have our inner cadre group, or we have 4 people, or we have 8 people. What do we do? Well, the first thing would be to establish a communication channel so you can work together and not just have disparate places where you talk. We prefer Telegram, many of the folks. It's encrypted. It's simple to use. There's already a whole lot of Freedom Cell people there. There's already a whole lot of activists, liberty lovers, cryptocurrency peeps. Telegram is an app that you can download on your phone, and you can have it on your desktop as well, which is good if you type a whole lot. And so you have your intercadre group. Go ahead and form a Telegram channel for your intercadre group. Then also form one for the middle cadre, or the beginning of a middle cadre. So I want to give an example of what we have here in Texas. I have a Texas Freedom Cell Facebook group and a Texas Freedom Cell Telegram channel. Interestingly enough, the Telegram channel is more active than the Facebook group, even though they have approximately the same number of people. That Facebook Telegram group is essentially a de facto middle cadre. I'm sorry, a de facto meta cadre. So right now I'm thinking, okay, let's go ahead and build a meta cadre, which is 8 groups of 64, approximately 544 people. And again, it's not going to be exact. It could be 6 groups of 8. Some of them have 6, some of them have 9, whatever. But let's go ahead and envision a meta cadre around 544 people for the state of Texas. Now we have the Telegram group, Texas Freedom Cell Network. Rather than working from the bottom up, organizing little intercadres, and then they all organize together, another way to approach it is to work from the top down. No, not hierarchy. No, not control or anything like that. But you have the the meta cadre, which is a Telegram Facebook group or a Telegram group for the Texas Freedom Cell Network. And then from that group, we can say, okay, here's what we're doing in Central Texas. And now we have a Central Texas Telegram chat. Here's the DFW Telegram chat, which already exists, okay? And then envision the DFW Telegram chat as a middle cadre group, right? And then within the DFW Telegram chat are different people that are in different intercadre groups. So this is how this can work. So if you are in the folks that are in Atlanta, they might as well go ahead and create a Georgia intercadre chat group, and then their a Georgia meta cadre group, and then their Atlanta group for the Atlanta area proper would be the Atlanta metropolitan area would be a middle cadre group, right? I don't know if all this terminology is confusing and just kind of clouds things, but I feel that it's beneficial to share this because like I said before, the infrastructure of having this network enables us to grow a good number of people without having to have hierarchy and control and bureaucracy. And so only time will tell exactly how effective that is, but I'm excited to see the results. So the first thing is to establish a communication channel. Then the next thing would be to set up regular meetings. Maybe I recommend at least once a month. Maybe once a week would be good too, but at least once a month. Then you work with your group to create a vision and a mission statement. This makes sure that you're all on the same page. Maybe some of the group members want to do stuff that isn't even in the radar of these other people. They're not into that stuff. They think it's a bad idea. That would be an opportunity. Maybe we should split into 2 groups. A vision statement is like what life would be like, your vision for life should you achieve your mission. So a vision could be like the South Austin Scorpions Freedom Cell. Our vision is a free South Austin where people trade amongst themselves, grow their own food, and are prepared to defend themselves. That's the vision, right? And then the mission is kind of like a how-to statement. By working together and organizing in a middle cadre freedom cell, the South Austin Scorpions will train, arm themselves, share seeds and growing practices in order to achieve our common goals, something like that. And then finally, you establish common goals. Some 4 that we've always been talking about for the past 4 years for your intercadre. 4 good goals to start with are everyone has 3 months worth of food. Everyone has an encrypted or off-grid communication channel like ham radio or CB radio if you're close enough. Everyone has firearms and knows how to use them safely and proficiently. And the benefit of in a group is that you guys can all choose to use the same caliber. So it's like, okay, 3 of us already have 9mm guns. The other 2 don't have guns. Let's encourage them to buy 9mm so we can do bulk ammunition buys and save some money. On that same token, maybe the middle cadre group of around 64 people could link up with a supplier of ammunition and buy really big bulk. Or when it comes to getting the 3 months worth of food storage, the group of 8 people can all pool their money together to buy bulk and get a lower price. Or even the group of 64 people could pool the money together. And then the 4th goal would be everyone having a bug out plan. Whether they all go somewhere together, maybe Johnny in the group has the 5-acre property, everyone else lives in the city, so they go to Johnny's place, or they all just work together to make sure that they are holding each other accountable. And I'm going to wrap up with this. It doesn't have to be. That's more of like a survival type situation, which I think is important and foundational for us to be prepared for what is to come before we start expanding out, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. But people can do whatever with it. So these were the goals I was talking about for the survival stuff. But again, if it's parents, they can establish common goals. We're going to chip in and buy a curriculum. We're going to rotate teachers. This is what the normal folks call a pod, right? An educational pod. People are thinking about taking their kids out of school and then homeschooling as a group. They call it a pod. And they're also like, we need to stay in our pod so we can not spread the virus. And you could do group field trips. You could do parent support group. If it's just straight parenting, you guys could rotate childcare, weekly play date, play dates, group outings, going to the farm down the road or whatever. It can be a spiritual growth group. When we got on the call, people were talking about meditation and all sorts of spiritual stuff, which is awesome. The group can do weekly meetings. They can do group yoga. They can be accountability partners to make sure they're working through their stuff together and growing. They can do pilgrimages to the Buddhist temple on the other side of town or whatever. Health and wellness, they can exercise together. They can share diet advice. And then political, which I guess is controversial, which is cool that political is controversial. But if people still want to engage the political system, then by all means, they can work together to pick candidates, to find things to lobby for. We already have an entrepreneurial mastermind on Telegram. I can post it there for people to join, but there can be like a lending group. There can be a mastermind like Homeboy talked about in Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill. That's where it came from. They can all go to success conferences together. So that's essentially what I wanted to share. I wanted to take an opportunity to get some nitty gritty stuff on how we can build out the network, how we can expand this and set up that infrastructure, because I do believe the infrastructure to be beneficial. The plan tonight is to go for around 2 hours, may go a little longer if people want to stick around, but we want to try to start wrapping up around 7. So I've rambled on long enough. Now I'm going to see if some of the folks that I asked, if they would just share a little bit about some of their successes. Here's April. April, are you there with us? I just sent a little thing asking you to unmute. April, can you hear us? You there?
Yes, I'm here.
Cool. Well, we'd really appreciate if you shared with us some of the stuff that you guys are doing there in DFW. I can hear you. I assume everyone else can.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we are doing a lot of what you cover.
Go. Hold on, April. We can't hear you.
All right. Tell me, how are we doing now?
We can hear you now.
Okay, I'm gonna hold still. I live in the country, so service is iffy. I can't promise anything.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so we have a group of probably 4 solid families, and then many others, I guess you would say, would be more in the middle cadre. Our focus, we're really a group of friends who share values. And as you were talking, that kept coming up to me as something that's really important, because we've been together for several years now, and we've weeded through different people who haven't been good fits for us. And I think it's really fundamental to focus on the relationship with the people that you have in your inner cadre, because to do all the things that we do, we have to want to be together, because we get together to knock out big, tedious tasks. And if we were doing it with people that we didn't enjoy being around, it would be even more difficult. Where with us, we're really good friends. So when we just had the gardening day at my place and it was 100 degrees and we're shoveling compost and digging in the dirt and weeding, it was actually still enjoyable because of the company that we kept. So I think that's one thing to mention, is to really focus on the relationship with the people that you're building these cadres with. Ours are focused around our kids. We have a lot of kids amongst the group, and that's actually how we found each other. We all homeschool. And so I like what you said about people who may not be extroverts. Find something that you're interested in and go to those things, go to homeschool meetings, go to gun groups, go to whatever, find them on Facebook, and then just challenge yourself to just step out and reach out to one of those people. So that's how we ultimately all met each other, were through our kids. And then in conversation found we had all this in common. Our focus really is freedom for ourselves and for our kids and for the future. And basically fighting the good fight now, because we don't know what they're going to be facing. And I know I can't live with myself if I just sit back and let this happen. So that's my motivation, kind of my big why. And right now, I think our main focus on our group is food. We definitely focus on many things at one time, but I would say with the current situation, food is our utmost priority. We do runs together to the grocery store to buy in bulk, but really we try to be as self-sufficient as possible. We are fortunate where we do live. Many of us do have homesteads, so we're able to grow our own food, and we raise a lot of animals as well. And so we share ideas. You know, we're about to add sheep to the mix, so I've been in charge of researching sheep, so one of the other group members can focus on chickens, and she knows all about the chickens, and then we share information, and then we both have sheep and chickens, but didn't have to spend the extra time doing all the research solo. So that's a huge value when you have kids that's not really, I guess, thought about. Yeah, I mean, we get together, if one person scores a deal on a bunch of cans, then, or jars rather, then we'll share it, you know, with somebody else. And again, with the garden, there's always an abundance of produce. So we're constantly, we go to the lake all the time. We have get-togethers. We're always constantly coming with a bag of tomatoes, an extra bag of peppers, eggs, whatever we have. So we share a lot with one another. One thing cool that we did just start doing, I think Chris is on the call. Chris has been heading this up. And I'm so thankful for that, because it's not my expertise, but we did put together a spreadsheet. We settled on CryptoPad. There may be better ones out there, but that's just what we're using right now. So it's kind of like Google Docs, but where we can create our barter network. So we all list what we produce, maybe things that we have, skills that we have, and what we're looking to learn or what we need. And it's a live spreadsheet that we can get on and see what each person has at the moment. We try to keep up with the inventory that's on there. And then Chris just took advantage of it the other day and made his rounds to different people in the area based on the spreadsheet, and got what he needed from them and brought what he had. So it's really cool to actually see it in action. We talked about doing that for the Texas group as well, doing a bigger one, and then it could even expand, you know, in the US and beyond, because we can still mail things right now to one another. So I like that, creating the counter economy. That is an interest. Yeah, I mean, we're just, gosh, I don't know, just trying to do the best we can right now, but definitely following your structure helps a lot when we get stumped of, okay, what's next? What else can we be doing?
I think you broke up a little bit there. Well, hey, April, thank you so much for sharing. That's what you guys are doing is super duper inspirational. And I know that we did a little consult call and strategizing session, and I was really inspired to see that you guys have such group cohesion, and y'all are meeting regularly. And yeah, keep up the good work. We want to, sorry, April, if you have anything else to share, you kind of cut out there at the end. So I don't know if your connection's good or not, but all right. Thank you.
Who knows? No, I'm good. If you have any questions, let me know, but no, I'm good here.
One more thing. How often does your intercadre group meet up?
We more than once a week. We are, because we're fortunate, a couple of us are close. One of our, you know, good ones is not as close, but we try to, you know, get together at least once or twice a week. When we do, I guess maybe more of like a middle cadre group would be once every other week, definitely at least once a month. And so it's fun for everybody. It's not all business, trust me. We like to have fun as well, because I think that's important. This time can get stressful, but if you're doing it with people that you like. And it's you're building friendships amongst, you know, in addition to all these other things. It's really cool thing. So it's worth it for those who are shy to step out of your comfort zone, because the reward is way, way worth it.
Right on. Okay. Thank you so much, April. I see you there, William. We're going to hear real quick from Brett and then Lisa, and then we'll go to you, William, to start our little conversational segment. Brett, if you're with us, I just asked you to unmute. If this is Brett from Atlanta. Can you hear me, Brett? You there?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Cool. Hey, yeah, we'd love for you to share with us about what you guys are doing there in Atlanta.
Okay, sure. Shouldn't take too long, but yeah, I got on the Freedom Cells website maybe 3 or 4 months ago when all this COVID stuff was really starting to heat up. And the whole concept was kind of new to me. I've been an anarchist for a while, but the Freedom Cells thing was new. But when I found it, it made a lot of sense. And from there, I got on the map and just tried to find people connected, tried to connect with anybody who would pop up in the Atlanta area. And it didn't take too long to get, you know, like 5 or 6 people together. And we had a couple of meetings shortly after that, and everybody was really clicking. And so we started out with that. And then we kind of had a breakthrough a couple of weeks ago. A guy named Pete Quinones, who a lot of people here are probably familiar with. He did an interview with you, John. Which I still haven't seen yet. I need to go back and watch it. But apparently there are a lot of other people in the area who follow him and got exposed to Freedom Cells through that. And so we've kind of had kind of an explosion. Well, relatively speaking, we've had an explosion of people here in the Atlanta area. So now we've got like 15 or 20 people here in Atlanta on a Discord chat, and everybody's, you know, kind of getting to know each other. We had our first like kind of middle cadre meeting last Saturday. And we had like 12 people show up. And so there's a few people we haven't all gotten to meet yet, but it's been really great just to connect with like-minded people. It's been hard for me to do. I've been trying to do that since I've been here in Atlanta the past 7 years, and just have not been able to find anybody who had the same ideals, you know, all the stuff you were talking about in your introduction. But everybody here seems to be on the same page, and there's a decent number of us, and got my first intercadre formed here. So there's four families in the group, and we're kind of just getting started out, but things are going well so far. We love hanging out together, and so
that's great. And then, so you said that you guys have an inner cadre that you formed, and then y'all have a middle cadre, which I guess is the bigger group. Approximately how many people are in the middle cadre?
I would say like 15 to 20 right now, plus some people have spouses, and there's, you know, a number of kids as well. So
cool. Okay, cool. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Brett, and keep up the good work, man. And be sure to share with us and share in the groups, and we'll all work together to figure out best practices, because, you know, we've never done this before, and we can help one another. But I think that's a great example. There's a very similar phenomenon taking place with April and her crew, and with Brett, in that you can go ahead and start with just a group of people that are like-minded. It could be 15, 20, 30, 50 people. And so rather than necessarily having to start with your inner cadre and then you build out to the middle cadre, you can go ahead and start with the middle cadre and then find the people to link up with that you bond with or vibe with, or maybe you don't vibe with someone. You're like, I don't want to be in that guy's inner cadre. And then you can go from there. And then on the same token, like I said, we have the Texas Freedom Cell Network. So we can go ahead and already start visioning that as fulfilling the role of the meta cadre, right? For now, I guess it would be a middle cadre because there's inner cadre groups in it. No, actually there's already middle cadres like they have in DFW. So that would be the meta cadre group. And then you can work down from there. All right, let's hear from Lisa, and then we'll open it up. We'll go to William first. If there's anyone else that has an inner cadre group or has the beginnings, we'd love to hear about strategies, tactics. But then other than that, we'll just have general discussion, and again, raise your hand. And then I'll unmute you and we can hear your piece. We can kick it back and forth. And yeah, I'll try not to miss anyone. You can ping me in the chat too if we're not seeing there. And when I say raise your hand, I don't mean like this. I mean clicking on those 3 little buttons and putting raise hand, or it's somewhere there on your screen. And then I'll get a notice that you guys are doing that. Okay, but first let's go to Lisa Bowman in Tulsa, Oklahoma, who's also doing a lot of great work and recruiting a lot of people and giving speeches at other groups to bring people into the fray. Lisa, thanks for joining us.
Thanks. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you guys. I got on Freedom Cell a few years ago, and it may have been shortly after it was created. I'm not sure. But I was there all alone, and I told other people about it. But I just kind of sat there for a few years, but now it's exploded, as everyone can see. So a couple months ago, I started setting up a meetup on Sunday, just because I needed to connect with people during all this craziness, to keep my sanity. And it turned into starting to create a freedom cell. So we started talking about that, and we've been meeting every Sunday since. We've got, well, we have 11 people in the group, but we have about 6 people who are consistently coming and sharing ideas. And I think a lot more people will start being more consistent about it. I created a meetup just last week in an effort to recruit more people. So it's like a voluntary agorist meetup. So anybody who's going on Meetup and looking for people like that will be there. And I try to keep it active, and I post all our events. So that's going to turn into the Sunday meeting. And the rest of us who are pretty close knit, we're going to start having like our inner cadre meetings. So they'll be separate, but we'll all still kind of be a part of that. Just so anybody who shows up can see that, oh, this is a good group and it's flourishing. And we've also moved away from making it just strictly social to starting to have like a topic of discussion. One thing we noticed when we had some new people, which I met through Freedom Cells, or they found me on Freedom Cell and joined our meeting, was that I think they kind of expected a topic of discussion or some kind of structure, like as in a meeting. So it's going to be really loose, like a really loose agenda, but we are going to at least come with a topic to discuss. And so this week, I think we're going to talk about ways to, like side hustles, but like through counter economics though, that way. And like April mentioned, we are also starting a sort of database, like a directory of people and their skills. And we're going to kind of prioritize them to, oh yeah, I'm like an expert in this and I can do some of this. Okay. And I'm not really good at this, but I could help. And maybe I want to learn a little bit more about this as another way, and any goods or services that anybody might be producing as well. So we're going to start that. My husband's a database guy, so that's his task. He's going to help us set all that up. We're pretty strong here in Tulsa, but I did create an Oklahoma cell too. So anybody from Oklahoma who jumps on could join that. Hopefully we can connect with them as well. Some of the other things we're working on is we have a couple of guys who are offering their services to get people set up on a CB radio. They've installed the antennas for the homes, and so they've offered to talk to our group about that and help anybody who wants to do that as well. We are starting to build up our food storage at home. That's a little more challenging really than I realized it would be, but we are working on that too. I've been with this group called Liberty on Tap for about 8 years now, and we meet monthly and we have different topics of discussion as well. And so I addressed a group of about 20 people last week, and I didn't expect that many people to be there, but everybody who came was really excited about all of this, and they wanted more information. So what I did was I gathered up emails, and so I always have that contact with them, and I sent them some links, and I sent them the Freedom Cell link so they could jump on. And I'm going to stay in contact with them because I know people get busy with their lives and change is hard, but I'm always going to be there without being too pushy, and always share them our events and everything. So eventually they'll show up. One thing that's been great about here is we have a really large organized group of people to push back against any sort of vaccine legislation, and they've been awesome. So I kind of look at them as a whole other cell or cadre that we will definitely stay in contact with, and hopefully a couple of the people who are interested in the Freedom Cell will start coming to our meetings, and then we can start talking to them about that side of it too. We also have a strong organized group for gun rights, and one of the people who's kind of working with our cell is also in tight with them. He's been very involved with them. So we have that connection too. So we have lots of great connections right around us. We also, what was it? Oh, some of us have discussed like land purchase too. There's some really cheap land for sale not far from here. And we've discussed that maybe a little bit further down the road when we can do that, but purchasing some land together or next to each other, a couple lots, and kind of start building that community out there. I also want to focus on helping people here in the city. You know, there's a lot of people who are like, oh, I'm buying land, I'm getting out of town, which is cool, but not everyone can do that. So I want to start building those groups here in the city too. So we'll have a really strong network for those of us that are going to have to kind of stay put where we are. I think that's most of it. We have tons of ideas and we're getting ready, you know, we're starting to act on them. Some of them are going to have to wait a little bit, but we are acting on them. I see the cell right now that we have. I see several of us breaking up and creating our own cells, because we have one guy who's very interested in permaculture and gardening, and he's going to help me do one in my backyard, and then we're going to help him set his up where he's at. This is going to be a little more challenging. And that's really what he wants to do. So we're just trying to help him get that momentum going, and we're going to document it and share it with the other people. So the people around us who are just kind of watching us are going to see that we're actually doing things, and then they're going to want to jump in, and they might be able to see where they can fit in as well. I've also offered to talk to any other groups, help anybody if they have any questions, or, you know, kind of get something going. I want to help as many people as I can and get that message out there to jump on board. So I think that's about it for us. We have another meeting tomorrow, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Right on. Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing, Lisa. You guys are doing great work and super inspirational. And it really just takes getting out there and doing it. And I think a lot of people will be surprised to find that there are people of like mind in their area. And it doesn't necessarily have to be that the person is 110% agorist or 110% anarchist or understands the inner nature of the shadow government and conspiratorial view of history or whatever. Because as you can see, we have 78 people on this call right now, and we all don't agree on everything 100%. But the idea is to network with people that are looking for alternatives, that are not satisfied with the way government is operating, and to work together, as I said before, on building shared value based on shared values. All right, so now we're going to open up the portion of the conference call where we share ideas, thoughts. If anybody has any criticisms or complaints or ideas on how things could go better or whatever, we'd also love to hear if you have the beginning of an intercadre group or what you guys have going on in your neck of the woods. But William has been waiting patiently with his digital hand raise, so we are going to hear from William. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for letting me speak. I was invited here by Matthew Fiorello, and we had a long conversation, several backs and forth over email. The Freedom Cell design hit my brain as a download in like 2 seconds in April 2012. At the time, I was a judge advocate, military attorney in the Air Force, and it completely changed my life. And I decided immediately to shift gears in my career 100%. And going, 12 to 16 hours a day, 6-7 days a week on scaling out the Freedom Cell design and get this thing going. So everything that John Bush and other leaders have shared about the design is 100% accurate, even down to the 8 number. Our group did our own independent research using 10 or 12 different fields of study, and we also proved to ourselves that 8 is the right number. So kudos to the outstanding work that you guys have done over in design and also implementation with your group of 3,000 to 4,000 people. Our approach, so what we are is a consortium of companies, and that includes socioeconomic architects, legal architects, software architects, and cryptographic companies. These are companies that design cryptographic algorithms. Also included are other consortia that are connected with frankly, the federal government and national laboratories on building out a new software architecture that we've designed to allow a Freedom Cell network to scale from its current size to billions. And our goal is to reach 1 billion people by 2024 and then reach the whole planet by the end of the decade. And so this software is intended to be a replacement for the big tech software complex. So extremely sophisticated, took many years of architecture. One of its purposes is to allow Freedom Cells to become not just, the design that you have with clusters of 8, 64, et cetera, is exactly the right design. In addition to that, what's also needed is a dynamic configuration mechanism to let people choose their own leaders at higher levels and also choose their own lower level folks, and have software connect Freedom Cell groups globally, so that you might have a Texas group that aligns with a New Hampshire group that aligns with a South American group, so that this configuration of leaders within the network is constantly updating to make the network grow faster and be more prosperous for all the members. Also, the software is designed to enable a generative economy, a generative legal system that allows a person, if they have a particular skill set, to find other people throughout the global network. And then that matchmaking can also be used to match people into those groups. In addition to that, we're currently working on retasking or repurposing existing networks that started in different capacities, primarily religious groups that really know nothing about the design of a cell group. We want those groups to become cell groups. And we want existing institutions to adapt themselves to transition into the Freedom Cell design. And so we're looking right now for leaders that have had months or years of experience operating cell groups and Freedom Cells. And we want them to become leaders of these other non-Freedom Cell organizations, and take custody of those organizations and teach them and mentor them so they can take those people. So for example, we have a group of 10,000 groups and 2 million people in India. And the top leadership is on board with the Freedom Cell design, but they need a curriculum, like the document that I just saw. They need leaders. And I want to basically invite folks, on this call and leadership here to basically help us transition these people in India. So if you think our government in the United States is bad, I mean, you've seen nothing like how bad it is in India. The level of oppression and incompetence in their Indian government is way beyond the incompetence of our government. So, the intent here is to build a international system, and what we want to offer you guys is a well thought through and sophisticated software architecture, and then the institutional architecture for how a Freedom Cell organization will be able to do what our current government does, but do it vastly better. And what we're also envisioning is not really a French Revolution or Soviet Russian Revolution type of a transition, between the old and the new. We're anticipating more of a collaboration, a public-private partnership, in which the Freedom Cell network, as it continues to expand, comes alongside our governments, gets paid by them to do work even better than what they do. And then when we have a fully maturated Freedom Cell network, then those other systems can eventually go into disuse. In addition to that, we would offer, there's, the encrypted communications that are being mentioned are all completely compromised, Signal, et cetera. We know this because we provide those services to the federal government. So there's going to need to be an ethos or an environment within the cell groups of collaboration and collegiality with the federal government and other governments. We know that they're incompetent. We know that they're not doing a very good job, but we want to be that light that they look to, and the example they look to for how a better society can be run. I would say that the ideology of our group is very much in alignment with what I'm hearing here. Although, our strategy is maybe, slightly different. We'd offer our strategy as something that you guys might consider in terms of scaling out. We've thought through, things like law. How would you set up a Freedom Cell-based legal system? How do we do matchmaking, capital formation, banking, insurance? How do we start businesses? How do we regulate them? How do we do healthcare and education? All those questions we have highly crystallized and refined answers to. And we intend to deliver those institutions through software in the same way that Bitcoin delivered currency through software. We would say that our software and our system, which is essentially like a distributed autonomous organization, is light years ahead of what you might have seen in the media. And the reason is that we've started with the right sociological design. And so from a top-down perspective, we haven't started from Bitcoin and then trying to add to Bitcoin. We started off from where we want to see the world headed to in the next 1,000 years, and then work backwards to the present. So it's a top-down design process. So we want to deliver this virtualized, AI-driven, encrypted socioeconomic system to the Freedom Cell network, so that people can find each other, make matches, solve problems, meet their highest identities and destinies that they really want to do. There's also, we believe ethics are very important. So cell groups, do need to have some kind of a code of ethics, where they, not allow certain kinds of behaviors that are, currently causing the collapse of our civilization. We need to be decent and honorable people. And so that this kind of culture is going to be important as we go forward. Now, people are going to have differences about what those values are. They do need to have some values. Otherwise, the groups will start to decay. And we want to have a good brand. And we want families to be taken care of. We want people to move out of addictions into higher functionality. So especially if the network is helping pay for healthcare, we need people to actively want to improve their health. We need better vaccines, everything else. So I just wanted to share that with you guys, and then turn the floor over back to the leadership.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing, William. And yeah, it piques my interest what it is that you're working on. I don't like the idea of a public-private partnership, and there were some buzzwords that caught my attention that you're speaking, but I private messaged you my email address, and I would appreciate you could email and reach out and share some information more on the architecture. I know that in order to more effectively carry out our goals on a bigger scale, then we definitely need some sort of infrastructure, some sort of communication channel, some sort of mechanism for decision making on a grander scale. And perhaps if there's time later on the call, I have a vision for how that can happen and still happen in a decentralized way that doesn't give up any autonomy or doesn't need any form of centralization. But yeah, I appreciate you being on the call and appreciate those ideas and the innovation stuff that you guys are working on. All right, let's go to Chris Baker here. Chris Baker here in Austin, Texas, driving his car, running errands. How are you, Chris? What's on your mind, man?
Hi, John. I wanted to ask, is everybody in the Freedom Cell community, are you guys all still basically living and acting like normal human beings? I mean, shaking hands, hugging, socializing, or are you all acting like zombies like everybody else?
Well, I can't speak for everyone, but I would imagine folks in this group are more likely to be giving hugs and to be shaking hands and to be avoiding masks, if not entirely, as often as possible. So yeah, there's people saying hugging, shaking hands, no masks. I'm not wearing a mask. I'm not afraid to hug or shake. So yeah, we got hugs going on. I know I saw you at the anti-mask rally that I happened to speak at, and that there were other people there, and that definitely was a crowd that wasn't in the mask. I know you're pretty perturbed with all that, huh?
I think this is the most pathetic year in recorded history, to be honest with you. It's absolutely it displays what should they have done? They should have done absolutely nothing. Just live your life and act like a normal human being. We would have had, no doubt, people would have gotten infected, but it's going to happen anyway.
Yeah, well, the whole response by the government to the COVID pandemic, plandemic, scandemic has actually been a great recruiting tool for the Freedom Cell Network. We've seen growth in this past year, unlike any time before. Really, we're experiencing some exponential growth. that I think is only just beginning. So as the powers that be, or the powers that wish they were, as Derrick calls them, begin to squeeze harder, there's like a yin and a yang effect where there is a response to that, where people begin to question it more, people will begin to explore alternatives more. So that's really what we're here, is to provide that social network, to provide that, finding the others, so that we can give each other hugs and shake hands and meet up and dance and have a good time. And then if we get shut out through the technocracy and COVID pass, you can't work, you can't go to the grocery store, we have our own infrastructure in place already. We have our own gardeners, we have our own food shares and all sorts of stuff. So we're gonna be okay. Did you have anything you wanted to share, Chris?
You should definitely move off of Fuckbook and move off of Twitter if you're on Twitter. I mean, I am so disillusioned. I mean, I've worked in tech for so long, and seeing this happen is just, it's absolutely heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's an obvious agenda for sure. Well, yeah, I'm still on Facebook because it's a great place to connect with people, but I'm more and more trying to find out these other channels. I know Derrick's been a champion of Minds and all the other alternatives as well. They're even on the front page of the site.
I'm finding MeWe really nice. I don't know what the deal with Minds is. I can't stand it. But anyway, that's and another reason why 8's good is that makes for 2 bridge games.
Oh yeah.
If you play bridge.
Right
4
on.
and 4. But yeah, so.
Cool.
Well,
all right. Well, thanks for tuning into the call and joining us as you go on your errands and cruising around crazy communist Austin, Texas. I'd love to see people raise their hands again. You got to raise it digitally. I think you used the little 3 things. But Amy, I see you there raising your hand the old manual way. Go ahead, Amy. If you unmute yourself, we can hear you. Do you have a question or comment or anything? We'll go to you next, Dash.
Hi, this is Amy from New York City. Right in the heart of one of the biggest cities in the world. I'm a native New Yorker. I'm an eccentric entertainer. Everybody please go on your search engines, look up Amazing Amy Yoga, and links to my website and videos will pop up so you'll see what I do. I'm the world's only senior sensationally stretchy contortionist at 65. Yoga for peace, justice, and harmony with the planet, unity of mind, body, and spirit, eccentric yoga entertainer. And is there any room in the revolution for an entertainer? I just want my gigs back. This whole incredible scamdemic has devastated and ruined my life, destroyed all my gigs since March. I haven't been able to do any performances. It's been absolutely horrendous, my worst nightmare. I just want my gigs back. I am so heartbroken. All my happiness, my joy, my purpose, my mission to spread the yoga love utterly destroyed by this virus insanity. And I am totally at my wit's end. My whole life's been ruined.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that, Amy. Well, you do have a network here of people that are here for you. Are you on any of the Telegram chats? And then one other thing, a lot of people are doing what's called pivoting in their business because of all the silly lockdowns and stuff. They're trying to find innovative ways to still reach their community or their customers. So maybe
the worst thing about this is the type of thing I do only really works in front of live audiences and real crowds that clap and cheer. I'm also in the underground economy. That makes it really tough because I have no bank account and no credit card. So I usually get paid in cash, or I have to borrow a friend's PayPal to get PayPal, and then it doesn't go directly to me, it goes to him. I mean, and I'm dependent on the government to support me, so if the government gets taken over by these technocrats, I'm totally screwed, and I don't know how I'm going to survive. It's just really horrendous what's happened because of this.
Sorry to hear that, Amy. You're definitely not alone in people that are negatively affected by that. I just saw someone in the comments in the chat say that there's actually a Freedom Cell group for artists on the freedomcells.org website. I think maybe they were referencing. So we'd love to invite you to join the freedomcells.org website and register there. And
Oh,
then
I
just
already
search.
did.
Okay, have you found the artists cell?
No, the artist group I didn't find.
Yeah, maybe just search artists there in the cell search, and you might find some camaraderie there. You guys can share some ideas and stuff. And yeah,
I
well,
mean, there really is no place. I can't see any place for someone like me, you know, out in a farm somewhere where people are just growing organic vegetables. I mean, where's an entertainer going to fit into that? I'm really the kind of person that has to exist in a very cosmopolitan setting. Although I do eat all organic vegetarian food.
all right. Well, Amy, we got some other people with their hands up. I just want to encourage you to stay positive and just try to remain hopeful. It's not going to last forever. And we're all here digitally, and there's plenty of people that'll watch you perform and join in with you online. I don't know if you do Facebook Lives or YouTube Lives, but I bet you'd be able to tap into your
The problem is where
network
I'm
there.
sitting right now, where I have my little camera, there's no room to perform or move around or anything. And I don't have the technology to move it into a bigger space. So, and also, like I said before, it really works with live audiences and cheering and clapping crowds. So this nightmare really has to end. That's why I'm fighting so hard, because I will do anything to get my gigs back. And if that helps to save the world from the technocracy, then great. I want to save the world from the technocracy.
All right. Thank you, Amy. Thanks for tuning in with us. And hopefully this all ends sooner than later. All right. We're going to go to Dash and then Carly. And then I think Aaron said she wanted to make a comment. I just saw here before Axe raised his hand. So Aaron, if you would raise your hand with the 3 little buttons so I can keep track. Can't figure it out. All right. We'll all just remember there. We'll go to you here in a second, Aaron. All right. Dash Manow. Are you with us?
Oh yeah, buddy. I'm here, John.
Hey, how
Just
are
want
you?
to
What
let you
do
know,
you got?
guys, I do have a stutter. So if I start talking weird, that's why.
That's fine.
Now, I'm over here at work, so that's why I got this. But one of the main issues I'm having is I just started a Freedom Cell about a week ago, and like at work, I go and drop truth bombs all the time. I talk about the Fed, like the Act of 1871, all that stuff, and like most of my coworkers are like aware that it's a joke, and the problem, like, I can't get them to go past that point. So they're sort of aware, and I get them to watch some of the videos from either Derrick or from James Corbett and like stuff like that. But I can't get them to go to the point where like they need to act. And that's one of the biggest issues I'm starting to have right now. My whole area is pretty dry. There's not many people that are super active. Within like a 50-mile radius of my area, I have maybe 6 or 7 people on the Freedom Cells website, and they're not super active. And I heard you talking about the freaking lone wolf. Oh, I saw in the chat. I'm from northern Connecticut, and I just lost my train of thought. Okay, so I heard you talking a little bit about being a lone wolf, but like being at work, I keep getting interrupted. I actually took my break for this now, but how is it that I should how should I go about trying to get people to start to act?
Okay, well, one thing to note is that sometimes people either aren't ready to hear the truth, or they do not want to believe it because they prefer comfort and tranquility, and the whole expression ignorance is bliss. And I have learned in a couple decades of activism and trying to wake people up, most of the time I was merely banging my head against the wall. And so there are over 6 billion people on this earth, and in Connecticut there's a lot of people as well. So if someone is putting up massive resistance and doesn't want to hear it or doesn't want to get active and do things to change it, then I would suggest not wasting a lot of time pushing and pushing and pushing. This is also good advice for people within their families and their friends as well. It reaches a point where we start to turn people off. And in my personal view, there's enough of us that believe it. There's enough of us that can potentially believe and buy in and get active, that we don't have to tarnish relationships by trying to force it down the throat of other people. I like to preserve relationships and honor, some of my old high school friends or whatever, or like, thankfully my family's like all into it and we can debate and my dad's on board and all sorts of stuff. But there was a time where I was really turning them off. And then so that's for the people that don't want to hear it, just let it be. And, there's other stuff in life to talk about, but then you can always drop little nuggets when it comes up in conversation.
Yeah.
But then the other thing is, there's this great book by Dale Carnegie called How to Win Friends and Influence People. And even though he like memorializes Rockefeller and all these people and Carnegie, all these really evil people, those evil people were actually successful at what they did. And so I guess there's something to learn from that as well, as far as their tactics. We have different goals, but there was one where it's always speak in terms of other people's interests. So this is a tactic that I learned when dealing politically and political activism back in the day, when I would be working with people that are more of a liberal left persuasion or working with people that are more of a right conservative persuasion. You find what it is that interests them, and then you speak in those terms. So if someone's like really against police accountability and you want to maybe coalesce with them or try to get them involved in your group, then you're like, okay, this person obviously cares about justice. They obviously care about not people being abused. They're against police brutality. So I'm going to talk to them. And then, as if we're anarchists or agorists, then we can speak in terms of their term. We're like, wow, have you ever thought about how the police force is a monopoly? And it's like one defense force, one security force. That's one of the reasons why there's so many problems, because there's not competition. What if we defended ourselves? For an example, conversely, if there's someone that's conservative and they have values of like limited government, or they're very religious, you can speak about, wow, the government's really doing a lot of stuff. Like, it's really immoral that people that are opposed to abortion are forced to pay for abortion. Maybe there's another way that we can organize things where people aren't forced to pay for things that they don't agree with, just dropping little seeds like that. That's some advice that I would give. Really, it's a numbers game too. Not to harken back to like me and my buddies when we were bachelors in college and stuff. We would talk about numbers as far as talking to as many girls as possible to try to get a number or whatever. I don't know. I feel a little embarrassed sharing that, but
yeah,
it's a numbers game. So there's tons of people in your area. You just got to go to the right places, find the right channels where you increase the chances of there being people of like mind, like a prepper meetup, like a farmer's market, like Libertarian Party people, for example. And then just talk to as many people as you can. And even, for every 20 people you talk to, maybe there'll be one person that your ideas resonate with, right? But even on that same token, let's say you talk to 100 people and the idea resonates with 5 people, and then it's only one of those persons that's actually willing to get active and form a Freedom Cell group with you. So it's the same thing as it is in picking up chicks. Sorry, it's not my vibe nowadays, as it is in sales, right? So you're going to want to contact as many leads as possible. And for the lead that'll give you his email address, there'll be a smaller number of leads that'll actually buy your product. There'll be a smaller number of customers that will actually continue to do business with you for the next several years. So really, it's just, don't get pessimistic, remain hopeful. There is a big sense of urgency, and Broze talked about at the beginning of the call, a lot of really big bad things that are happening. But at the end of the day, the price of liberty is eternal vigilance, and we are going to be on this for quite some time. So doesn't necessarily have to be a rush where you start to feel disillusioned that we're not going to be able to win this or whatever. Just take your time, try to have fun with it. And if someone's an obvious no, then move on. If someone's interested, then try to cultivate that relationship and find areas of common ground to work with them on. Does that help?
Oh yeah, man. I actually sincerely appreciate that, because I've been getting really down in the dumps over here. And yeah, man, sincerely appreciate it. Thank you. Right
on. And then one other thing too, there's a big emphasis on local and in person. but we can build societies that are non-territorial. And while of course there's benefit of being in person, you can grow food, you can defend one another, you can meet up in person and build that human connection, we can also still engage one another and support one another and do business with one another and share ideas with one another and help each other grow digitally. So it doesn't just have to be people in Connecticut or in your particular local area that you build intercadre groups with. You can build groups with other people. You can get involved in other people's groups. There's a lot of groups that aren't necessarily geographical on the Freedom Cell network. So start thinking about that too. People can engage in the counter economy by trading with one another, mailing stuff to one another, using cryptocurrency for that too. So it doesn't have to be in person, but although it's best if it is in person and maybe a combination of virtual as well. So, yep, cool. Okay.
Yeah, man, that's awesome.
Thank you so much, Dash, for sharing, and thanks for being a part of the network. Okay, before I go to Carly, I'm going to go to Erin because I did think I saw her physically raising her hand there, and then we're going to go to Carly, Axe, and Ethan. And I'd like to wrap up around 7. We can stick around a little bit longer if there's still a bunch of people on the call that want to share, and if there's some, we're still rocking and rolling. But yeah, go ahead, Erin. Can you unmute? Are you there, Erin? What's on your mind?
Hi, everybody. I just want to love you all up and hug you all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. This is just, I've been working on finding like-minded people for like 6 years now. And I never gave up. I wanted to because it was hard, but I just got on the internet and I found some people to meet up. And then I found, as much as I hated Facebook, I got back on Facebook. And then I joined, I'm in Maine, by the way. And there was all these groups. Maine for Mainers was one of them. The Mainers for the Constitution, Mainers for the Second Amendment, Maine Preppers and Survivalists. And then this COVID thing happened, and then all these other groups started emerging. Like Reopen Maine, Team Up Maine, Stand Up Maine. There's like tons of them. And I joined all of them. And I have read people's posts and I resonated with certain people, and then I'd message them and friend them. And now I'm like, I've been building this community one by one by one. And we've been meeting, one group that I was on actually ended up getting targeted by Antifa. They were calling us right-wing extremists, but we're really just, most are conservatives, and I'm not really Republican or Democrat, but I resonated more towards, and I didn't care. I'm not a Trump supporter, but some of them are. And I'm like, that's okay. I don't, everybody's in a different place in their process. And so anyway, we have a group now going, and there's probably a core group of 5 or 6 of us. We've looked into buying land. We're talking about homesteading, firearms, security, ham radio, teaching skills. We have one person's home who has a homestead, and that's where we meet. And in order to not be like on the radar anywhere, we're now off of Facebook, and now we're looking towards another, and I think we're going to use Telegram for our group to connect. I'm on Proton Mail. I'm on the Brave browser now, pulling away from the mainstream places, but we're going to call ourselves the Barbecue. That's what our group is going to be. We're calling ourselves a barbecue because we have barbecues in the good weather every month. Once a month we're meeting.
Everybody loves barbecue.
Yeah.
Well, I guess vegans don't love barbecue.
Oh, we all gather and we talk about all these things, how we're going to communicate, how we're going to defend ourselves, how we're going to, one of the groups is showing people how to butcher, chickens and rabbits, and how we can share and how we can barter. And I go over there. There's a group of small core of us, and I visit them every week. the greater group meets once a month now. And we're making it happen. And I'm like the secretary of the group. So I'm in charge of communicating. So I make sure everybody knows what we've talked about at our meetings, what we're going to work on, and just keep the communication going. And I'm just kind of the like person who embraces the shy ones and welcomes them into the circle. And I used to be the shyest person ever. I wouldn't even talk. And now I'm like, you know, thriving because I'm like reaching out. It's about reaching out to people. People are lonely out there.
Yeah.
And I'm lonely too. So I'm like, hey, let's meet, you know? So, so we're working on it.
Cool.
And just to wrap up quickly, one thing I did want to mention was we actually also talked about, you know, the vaccine issue. And a few of us have made a pact that we absolutely will refuse the vaccine. And that, and we've talked about meeting death. And I'm not afraid of it at this point. I absolutely would much rather, there are fates worse than death, and I would much rather die than to be, you know, live in the world that they have planned for us. And few of us have made a pact, and it's awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah, that sounds like freedom right there.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's all I just wanted to share.
Cool. Thank you for sharing, Erin. And I really appreciate what you said about just putting yourself out there and how through this activism, you have kind of came out of your shell and you're more social and more able to connect with your fellow humans. So that's a beautiful thing. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And everybody's isolating in the world. And in these last few months, I've been more social than ever.
That's right.
I've been reaching out like crazy, and I'm just like doing it.
All
That's
right.
antithetical to what they want, isn't it?
Heck yeah. We're forming more relationships, and it's a beautiful thing. All right. Thank you so much for sharing, Erin. You're great. Okay, cool. We are going to continue on, and we are next going to go to Carly Fletcher. How are you? You can unmute yourself and share what's on your mind. How are you? Thank you.
Hi there. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Oh, wonderful. So I live in the Atlanta area, and I'm a part of the Atlanta Freedom Cell. And I only found out by, I think, hearing you on the Free Man Be on the Wall podcast.
Cool.
And one thing I wanted to affirm, Amy, who is that one of my hobbies is swing dancing, Lindy Hop. And that is most certainly a very fearful community that has entirely shut down. And so I just know my parents in California, they have had speakeasies where they've been having bands. And I know there's still an appetite, not only myself, but I believe in others, to get artists, to get entertainers, because I want to find the people who are willing to dance in the midst of all this fear. And I want to hear live music and yes, all of that. And, but it's also finding the people, because related to Dash, it is hard, and it's easy to get discouraged during this, because I know myself because I want to socialize. I asked to socialize with people, and they weren't willing to socialize. Mm-hmm. So it's been a hunt where I've now hunted down and found people who have been willing. For instance, I think there's a few people I found. I'm a part of the Tom Woods Supporting Listeners group, and I found people in the Atlanta area who were willing to meet, and I've just been reaching out to them going, I need anyone who's willing to meet. Let's just go have lunch. Let's just start meeting with people. And I'm very hopeful for this Freedom Cell network, and I am eager to also learn more skills. One question I have from you, do you have anywhere on your site, when I've talked with my group about, is there a list of recommendations for that 3-month food supply, saying, okay, the human body often needs a lot of protein for our DNA. And protein and fats, we can survive off more protein than only straight carbs. You can't survive off of that. So do you have recommendations of here's a list of what we would recommend. You make discretionary decisions, but some reference.
So one of the things that I would have we would like to do in the future is have on the back end of the website like some guides. So guides for self-defense, guides for mindfulness practice, guides for this. I'd also think that it would be beneficial if we were to link up with a ethical, organic, storable food company, and then to get an affiliate link, and then we can encourage the Freedom Cell members to purchase from this company, and then the Freedom Cell network gets a taste of that. We don't have any revenue coming in. We're going to create a donations page, but really it's like me and Derrick, and especially Neil Rademacher, that are doing all of the web work, Neil especially. So any funds that we come in, we'd love to filter to him so he can do more. Maybe we find a full-time person. But to answer your question, we don't have that. But here's the beauty of how the network works. So because that's a good idea, and because there's people that like that idea, there can be like a single purpose cell created. It can have 8 people, doesn't need 8 people, but it's like, okay, we have this great idea that would benefit the network as a whole. Put together a guide on what you need to do, establish your caloric count for your family. And then these are good storable foods. These are foods to avoid. A great tactic for everyone is whenever you go to the grocery store, you simply just add on like 10 or 20% more. So maybe you normally buy 5 cans of corn or whatever, you go ahead and buy 7 cans, and then you set that aside. Then you're doing it incrementally, so you don't have to shell out like $400 for the storable food at once. But what I was saying is, if you want to head it up, Carly, or if there's other people that want to head it up, they can form a single purpose cell and then put together a document that we can share with the rest of the group. And there can be there are a handful of food production cell groups on the back end of freedomcells.org. And so that would be a place where that information can be stored. And then whenever we find the time to create a page on the back end, like a resources page, if Derrick's listening, let's try to do that sooner than later, then we can do that as the Freedom Cell website admin team. But that's a great idea. And there's a whole variety of things like how to start a homeschool cooperative, how to defend your home from attackers, so on and so forth. These are all knowledge. And that's one of the big parts of the Freedom Cell network is sharing skills.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. That's one thing I encourage, and we're going to have another meetup here in Atlanta on the 22nd. And one of the agenda items I had is us brainstorming and coming up with maybe a good list of suggestions of saying, these are ideal foods we recommend for people to have, to try to go from there. Because I know sometimes I'm trying to start from blank and going, okay, let's do some resource and pull together. And so, yeah, that's very good. And I don't want to take away from other people raising their hands. So thank you so much for all your work. And I've really enjoyed hearing people.
Okay. Thank you so much, Carly. And the dancing thing, I love it that it's rebellion now just to dance. It reminds me of Footloose. Maybe you've seen that movie with Kevin Bacon. I had a friend that's an ecstatic dance DJ, and he organized an underground ecstatic dance in Nevada City where there's a bunch of free spirit hippie types there, and they all had precautions, and they had a bracelet. If someone wants to socially distance and not have everyone around them, they would wear this orange bracelet, and everyone accepted personal responsibility when they went into it, knowing full well the consequences that they could spread the virus. And there's 150 people. And sure enough, the virus did get spread around a little bit. Most of the people had no symptoms at all. A few people felt ill for a day or two. And I don't think there was any community spread beyond those that were at the actual dance. But because of organizing this, my friend got ran through the mud and shamed, and the Karens and a lot of really nasty people, death threats, all sorts of stuff. So one of the scary parts about the world we're living in today is that because so many people have been amped up and so afraid that they're really nasty to their fellow human beings who simply want to just live free. And I thought it was a beautiful example of personal responsibility. All of the adults made a decision to risk their health, even though everyone was just fine. But that's really what freedom should be all about. But that's been taken away from us, unfortunately. All right, let's go to Axe next. Axe Win, are you with us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
From you. Yeah, we can hear from you. How are you? What's on your mind?
Hey guys, how are you? Hey, listen, I've been known about the Freedom Cells for a long time. I think I first heard Derrick talk about it down at Acapulco. So then I just recently got active, And I'm up in the Chicagoland area. I got a homestead out here, though I'm out in the suburbs. And the issue I'm having is I just can't really get people to respond on the Freedom Cells Network. And I've messaged many times. It seems like there's a lot of people in my area that just aren't very active. So I've done the lone wolf thing as well. And thank you for all the strategies there. But I was just wondering, do you have any sort of propaganda that we can use when we go out there and try to recruit people? Like maybe I missed it, but is there somewhere on the site where you have maybe a handout that we can print out, or perhaps messaging that you can send in the form of an email or a text? Does anything like that exist currently? Again, I'm just sort of new to the whole process of doing it.
Sure.
Hey,
So,
John, can I chime in?
yeah, go ahead for sure.
Hey, actually, this is one of the projects I want to work on. I was just talking with Miriam about going out soon and doing some late night ninja stuff, putting Freedom Cell propaganda around the city. Because in addition to the document that John was showing earlier that we're working on, actually getting, sort of like a small zine, a handout that people can pass out easily, we also want to be able to have small flyers that can basically explain it. And then I think it could be cool to just have, the Freedom Cells, sort of the network looking logo, the website, something simple like, are you looking to get organized? Are you looking, or just some sort of vague, but hopefully message to get people curious that says, that find us in the website or whatever. So we definitely want to start making more flyers and propaganda to get out there so that, because I was going to say this to Dash too earlier, that can be one thing you can do in the meantime, is start putting out flyers and things so that if you're having trouble finding people at the moment, putting them up in coffee shops, putting them out just different places where people might still be gathering despite COVID, it would be a good idea. Because, sometimes the building is a slow, steady process. You're not immediately going to find other people. But yeah, so we are definitely working on getting more propaganda out there.
Great. Yeah. And I know Derrick's been talking about that, and I want to encourage everyone. So I was involved in the Ron Paul for President 2008 presidential campaign. By the time the 2012 campaign rolled around, I was already far gone on anarchism. I didn't want to participate, but I appreciated the campaign and what he was doing. It's always great watching him in the debates, or it was. But in the early campaign, there was two distinct institutions. There was the Ron Paul Revolution, which was the grassroots movement of just a bunch of crazy people that were going out and getting their hands dirty and getting in the community. And then there was the Ron Paul for President campaign, the campaign committee, a corporation that raised money and participated in the election. And the Ron Paul Revolution, we didn't wait for any marching orders. A lot of us didn't even, like me and my friends would go and make a spray paint stencil and spray paint it and then put signs all over town, right? We didn't buy the official sign from the campaign, although we did that too. And so the point that I want to make is that we don't have an official, or one that Derrick made or I made, and it's on the website, right? But everyone in the group, in the movement, can put together their own propaganda. I know David Freeman and some folks just created a Telegram group for Freedom Cell memes, which I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of great stuff that come out of that. And so if anyone in the group makes a flyer, if anyone puts a little promotional video, if anyone makes a pamphlet or whatever, those are assets that can then be shared with everyone else. So I want to encourage everyone not to wait on Derrick to produce this little handout or whatever, just to go out and just do it. You can even use your own words. I'm an organizer in the vein of Swarmwise, which was this guy, Falky of whatever. He was the pirate party in Iceland, I think. And it's this form of organizing where it doesn't have to be like, we need permission from the central committee to do something. It's like, if you and another person in the group think it's a good idea and it's in line with the overall mission, then go do it, right? So that's what I want to try to encourage, the vibe that we have as the Freedom Cell Network. It's like, we're all equals here. And, Derrick and I may be more vocal or have these platforms we can share it on. A lot of the people that are on the call have huge platforms as well. It's not about waiting for the asset to be made. It's about, let's go produce it. And this type of stuff can be super simple, like Broze was saying. It can be like a provocative question, like, mandatory vaccines, ? Concerned about mandatory vaccines? Join the Freedom Cell Network. We are the resistance, or something like that. So yeah, thanks a lot, Axe. But we are producing those assets, and we need everyone's help to produce that stuff too. And then the way that works is when one person makes it, we share it on the website, and then we all can utilize it. Did you have anything else, Axe?
Yeah, can I just add one more thing?
Uh-huh.
So I agree with that, and I'm also doing that approach. I'm not just waiting for information to come my way. I got you on that. I guess what I'm saying is that the people I end up talking to that aren't really familiar with the concept, when I start explaining, they sort of, their eyes glaze over as like they really don't understand the concept of 8 times 8 times 8, you know, and maybe that's just not the right person for us, right? But I just think that if we had a concise way to summarize all of the attributes that we might be looking for in an inner cadre and how that relates to the middle and then the outer cadre or the meta cadre, maybe a quick graphic that does that,
Well,
that would be very helpful, at least for me.
I hear you completely. And even when I'm doing calls and I'm explaining the inner cadre, middle cadre, and meta cadre, I'm thinking, like, as I'm talking, I'm like, am I losing people? Is this totally weird and complicated and like way like complex? And the answer is, yeah, I think it is complex and weird and like not in people's comprehension. So when you're first recruiting, forget about all that stuff and just say like, hey, I'm part of a mutual aid group and we're working together to improve our lives without needing to rely on government. Would you like to be a part of it? You know, you don't have to get into the nitty gritty until they're like, wow, I'm really interested in it. And, you know, we've been hanging out for a month or so, or maybe for a week or so, or whatever. You definitely don't lead with the inner cadre, middle cadre, meta cadre infrastructure. Just lead with, hey man, some crazy stuff's going on in the world and we're building a mutual aid group. Let's work together.
I want to add to that, John. I think that promoting it as much as the productive, positive aspect of it, because obviously, clearly, many of us think this is a necessary concept to avoid disaster down the road, but we're also doing it because we want to be around people who have similar values and who care about the world and who want to live more in harmony with the planet. So I would say, yeah, rather than getting sucked into the details of things that, you know, you have to build what you have first before you can get to those other levels anyways. Starting out with like the positive benefits of it, it's basically just your local closest tribe of people that you trust that you can depend on, and so you guys can learn a bunch together, you can grow food together, you know, really kind of playing up those aspects of it.
Yeah. And it could just stop at like, hey, I want to help. I want to build this inner cadre group where we work together. It's a mutual aid group. And then the cool thing about this network is we work together with other small groups. And you don't even have to go further than that until, you know, you're like having a beer together and getting into the nitty gritty kind of stuff. But thank you so much, Axe, for participating, and thanks for that feedback. And yeah, we definitely, somebody's mentioning now that we have a propaganda freedom cell that produces propaganda and stuff. This is all good, great stuff. All right, we're going to go to Ethan next. Ethan, how are you today? You are live on the Freedom Cell at 5th International Conference Call. Thanks for joining us.
I'm good, John. Thank you for doing this. And thanks to both you and Derrick for putting in the time and energy to just establish this network. I think the concept is amazing, and I'm pretty new to it. I just joined about a month ago, and so far my experience with it is extremely minimal. I haven't gotten a group going yet, but I've been trying to recruit friends of mine and people that I come into contact with that, you know, might be interested in this sort of thing. And so far, I haven't really had any success getting people on board. And in my area, last time I checked, which I need to get on there today after this call, I'll probably jump on there and check in. There's only one other person in my local area that is registered, and I've had a couple messages back and forth with them, but we haven't actually gotten together in person yet or anything. But again, you know, I just wanted to get on here and say thank you guys for doing this, putting your energy into it, because I think it's amazing and it's really needed right now. So
right on.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Well, thank you for participating, Ethan. And it's you know, the word cell, it's like the whole is it's also like a Buddhist thing too, where it's like I don't know the exact word for it, but the whole is the individual parts, and the individual parts are the whole. It's all one and the same, interconnectedness, right? And so every single person that's on this call is part of what makes this network so powerful and so special. And so one problem that a lot of people come across, which isn't really a problem, it's just an opportunity, is that they go to the Freedom Cell website and they're amped up about the project, and then they see that they're a lone wolf in a particular area. Well, that is when we need you to go out and do the recruiting. And I know it's easier said than done, especially if people don't have a history of organizing or going out there. But like I said before, it's really important and contingent that we get out of our comfort zone. And like we heard our shell, as I was trying to say, like we heard from Erin, she actually started getting out of her shell and then became more comfortable and found like, wow, there's this side of my personality that I didn't even know was there. And now she's like going to parties and stuff in the middle of the pandemic. So if there's nobody in your area, then it's up to you to go recruit and to find people. And again, it doesn't have to be agorist, subscribes to the conscious resistance network type people. It can be the guy that is upset with the government and is like, doesn't want to vote for Biden or Trump. And they're like, this is so stupid. Both of these guys are total jerks. And it's like, well, maybe we can do things ourselves. We can self-govern, let's try that, So that's just some advice. And then that's why we're creating the manual too. There's a lot of stuff out there that gives advice on how to go organize and how to go build. Thank you so much, Ethan, for participating and being a part of the network. All right. This person's name is iPhone. So iPhone, how are you? You can unmute and we'd love to hear from you. Mr. iPhone.
Is that me?
Yep, that's you, iPhone.
Hey, man, awesome. Hey, glad to join you, man. I got my son here. Look, I'm just a blue-collar worker out of Virginia, and I'm just wondering how I get this self started. I know you've touched on this a lot, that, you just takes time, blah, 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 but I mean, how do you get, because I got Facebook, and the only reason I have Facebook is for the yard sale sites around here. And we do a lot of yard selling, bartering, and we do a lot of that around here, but everybody's wearing face masks. But I walk into these people every day in stores that are going, this isn't right. And everybody knows it's not right. So how do we get something going? And I think we can do it. And I guess I'm just looking for confirmation or whatever your ideas are. How do we get this thing going in an area like I live in, which is about 60 miles out of DC? It's a very blessed area. It's a very beautiful area. We have everything down here, but I see all my people that I've grown up with, I'm 40 years old, that are wearing masks, and I'm looking at them like, so I guess I'm wondering, like, the group of 8 is the most amazing, mind-blowing idea. Joe Dispenza and those people talk about it as well. Lynn McTaggart, and they talk about it as well. That's what I find so interesting about your group of 8 and how it works and everything in the history behind of it. But I speak to a lot of rednecks down here who I thought I never would imagine would go along with what they're going along with, but they are.
Yeah.
And they preach, that's what we grew up on, was freedom and the ability to do and provide for your family. And now all of a sudden they're told to do something and they're doing it. So I guess what I'm trying to ask is, I'm trying to get a group started down here, like what you guys are doing. I listened to A Plain Truth. He has a lot of good things. It's just so much. It's like so much.
Yeah. Well, you got to start small. I'm going to mute you real quick because I can hear myself, and then I'll unmute you if you have any follow-up or anything. iPhone. It's good to start small. So maybe rather than focusing on creating a group of 8, you go find first that other guy or girl, 1 or 2 other people. Maybe you said you're a working class guy, maybe some of your work buddies. I don't know if you guys kick it after work or whatever, or have some beers back, toss back some beers, but that's a great opportunity to start a conversation, or even at work. And then I was thinking, when you mentioned the mask and how your old buddies, your old redneck buddies, they are now following the orders and wearing the mask. What if they just need someone to tell them, like, hey man, we don't have to do this. This is some bullshit. Let's take our masks off and go, go hang out and drink beer at the park or whatever. That another way to recruit too is like to go places in public without the mask. And then you can tell when you look at other people and they're giving you a dirty look, or you can tell sometimes when they're like, hey, I wish I had the balls to not wear my freaking mask, And then maybe someone will there's actually people that say stuff when you're not wearing a mask and it's positive, right? That might be a way to find people, but just start small. And then when you start putting yourself out there and you get these small victories, like, okay, I actually had a conversation with someone. It was favorable. We found common ground. They think Bill Gates is a piece of shit. They think our governor is a piece of shit for these orders. I got the guy's phone number. We're going to meet up, right? Or at least even just small, good conversations. These are small victories. And those small victories add up to larger victories. And they start reinforcing the momentum. They start building some momentum. So, I think we'll probably need to do a conference call or put together some stuff on like workshops on organizing, on tactics and strategies to get out there. And, I don't want to, like I've been doing social organizations and political organizations and stuff literally for like 20 years. So I don't ever want to I try not to assume that everyone's on that same page. And so I think I have some skills that I could offer to people. And I think that we could bring in other people that have skills and that have history of organizing to share with others. And really what it's all about is skill sharing and collaboration. But I guess my advice to you and to Dash and to others on the call is just to start small victories. Instead of recruiting 8 people or 7 other people, try to start recruiting with that one person, having conversations, posting on social media, hosting a meetup at the local restaurant or the local park, talking to your work buddies, talking to your old redneck buddies and striking up a conversation and being like, man, do you think this shit's ridiculous that's going on? And then based on their response, maybe like, you know what, I was waiting for someone else to say it. I just thought everyone would be pissed off at me because I think the same thing, I don't know. Does that help?
Yeah, it does in a minute, but man, really, I mean, yeah, that's what we do. We do that. We've been doing that, but we're tired of just talking to individual people. So we're ready to get, to do a group of 8 or get a group community together. And I think how we can do it down here, and maybe this might touch other people who aren't in your Houston community or Texas community, is through the yard sale sites. Like I said, I mean, I'm only a member of Facebook for the yard sale sites because I do, home and residential repairs. So, we're down home. I mean, that's who we deal with is family and friends, but it's just everybody talking separately instead of everybody, because, we're friends with our local sheriffs. We're friends with our local police departments. So, people don't want to create that, what they're trying to enforce. It's a weird dynamic. It's a very strange dynamic for people like us, I guess. I mean,
I can
for
feel
everybody,
that.
But
you don't want to rock the boat. Some people are just trying to do their job.
And you're living in a community that's always worked, but it's not working anymore.
No. Yeah, and there's a lot of people that think the way that you think, that we all think, and they are just a little afraid to go out there and say it. And so when people start saying it, then they might come and find you, in fact. But I would just encourage you to not get discouraged and to think about the long game. Like at the beginning of the call, I talked about we need to have a intergenerational mindset. I see you got your son back there. So we need to be thinking about what kind of foundation can we set up for him and what kind of setup can we have for our grandchildren. And so even though it may seem like on the short term, we're frustrated, we're not having a lot of successes, we're having trouble recruiting people, we just need to stay at it. And then once we start getting those small victories, we'll start to build momentum. And then once you have 2 or 3 people, it's like a force multiplier. It's not just you that's out there building and helping people come into the fray. It's 3 people now. And then it makes it easier to get that 4th person, that 5th person. Then before you know it, you'll reach an exponential growth like we have with the network as a whole. So just try not to be discouraged. I wanted to share, I don't know if they have it scheduled, but if you guys join the Telegram Freedom Cell chat or the Facebook group. I don't know if they've been posting this as events, but Lisa Bowman, who we heard from earlier, and some others, they're doing a weekly, we call it Truthers Anonymous. They call it Truthers Anonymous. It's a clever name. But it's just a weekly Zoom call that's just more of a social thing, like kick back and have conversations for the Freedom Cell Network. So that could be something for people that are feeling kind of isolated or whatever. We don't have to wait for this international call or just post, message on the Facebook website. There's a weekly Zoom call. That's a good opportunity to hang out. It's also a good opportunity to invite people to get a taste of what the network is all about. All right, cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us there in Virginia. Gun rights is a really hot issue in Virginia. I saw when the governor was trying to push forward some BS through the legislature or something, people really rose up, and it was like everyone was worried it was gonna pop off hot there for a little while. So
well, it's just crazy, they're worried about gun rights, but they're willing to put a mask on their face. That
yeah,
just weirds me out.
It's
really
wild.
does.
Well, it's weird times
strange.
we're living in. All right, man. Well, thanks for joining us.
You.
We're going to hit a couple more people. All right, we're already past 7 here. So let's hit these last folks, and then we'll wrap up and wish everyone a good night. Glass Family, you are live. Go ahead, Glass Family. Glass Family, you can unmute now. We'd love to hear from you. Oh, I think I just muted you on accident again. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. How are you?
Sweet. Hey, quick question that I'm trying to kind of determine with everybody is, and I know this may be kind of like chat fodder over on this side, but is how many people are working on like growing their own food, like moving towards that space of growing stuff? Because that's we don't have a huge backyard, but that's essentially what we're trying to move towards is, I know it's going to be a process, but I mean, our ultimate goal is to get out potentially on land. And so I'm just curious, like how many people are trying to move in that direction? Because I feel like, it seems like we're all kind of trying to find that spot where, we can kind of find these like, intro points for everyone. And obviously food is going to be a huge ordeal going forward. So I feel like, we can find those soft openings with people if we're like growing stuff and it's like, hey, by the way, I know you may be struggling here. So, we've got something that, we can give to you. And by the way, like, here we go. Like,
yeah.
This is what's causing us to get to this point of why we started trying to grow our own food. So it was mainly just kind of a curiosity with everyone as to, where they're headed in terms of food production. Cause I just feel like that's going to be a huge, point of interest going forward here.
Yep. Let's hear. There's already people posting in the chat. People chime in and let us know if you have some food production going in your backyard or your homestead. And then also we'd love to know if you have a goal of creating an intentional community or getting a big piece of property with some friends and stuff. I think there's a lot of that in this movement, in this network. And food, of course, is one of the most foundational needs in order for humans to survive. And so that is also a really great area to find common ground. It's non-controversial. It's independence. It is something that everyone can relate to, food. And so I think you bring up a really great tip that a great area to recruit is to start gardening, start growing food, talk about growing food, talk about the growing season, talk about being in a rough summer because it's been so hot. And that's a great opportunity to bond. And then, like you said, it opens the door for, man, I'm really concerned with the instability of the supply chain, or man, they're really pumping a lot of GMOs out these days, so on and so forth. So yeah, I appreciate that advice. And then I personally have the goal, and in fact, my girlfriend and I are just now starting to put money together to have a down payment to buy a piece of property. And it's our goal to buy 10 to 20 acres here in Central Texas. I know Derrick Broze is working on a similar project. there's a lot of people in the network that have that. It's always been the vision for people of our like mind, even in like the unschooling community, for the families to all get together and have a community together. So I think that's something, as we build out this network, when there's someone in a given area that's like, hey, I'm looking to buy a piece of property with some like-minded people, the best place to go would be the Freedom Cell Network. And chances are there'll be people in your area that are looking to do that as well. And then, you know, as this grows, we can even utilize the Freedom Cell infrastructure. So you create a cell of 8 people or however many, and it's all 8 people in your area that have all been vetted, and they all want to buy a piece of property together. And so they form a single purpose Freedom Cell. We already have one for the folks that we are inviting to our property. You have a single purpose Freedom Cell, and that cell exists for the purpose of finding land, coming up with a financing structure, or however you're going to do it, right? This can even be on a grander scale where you have a larger number of people that maybe want to go in on a property, or maybe there's a middle cadre that gets together and they want to buy 100 acres and then parcel it out to the inner cadres or whatever. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of people there, Glass family, that are on the same page. And so appreciate you bringing that up. And there's a lot of food, like I said before, there's food production cells in the Freedom Cell Network that are like skill sharing, idea sharing, and stuff like that. So,
and I was going to just make one more comment. Is I know a lot of people are trying to figure out how they kind of find that point of interest where they're talking to other people. So, I mean, generally what we're trying is just Facebook, take it for what you will, but it is a tool. And so if you go on and just kind of progressively, what I'd say, type in like rational thoughts, things that seem like they're logical, that, you know, kind of dispels a lot of like the fear mongering and, you know, all that, and just keep posting daily. And what I'm finding is even when sometimes I'm posting, I'll get disagreements, but people will start slipping into private messages and be like, hey man, you know, I don't necessarily agree with you, but like, it seems like what you're coming up with is like pretty rational. And so if you can just kind of stay in that middle ground and not getting like, you know, like super one way or the other, where it's just like the extreme, and you can just kind of like, you know, post things that seem like they're, you know, have some thought process behind it versus just reaction, you know, response and all that, which a lot of people are doing to, you know, post and repost. Is I've got a couple of people right now that they're not necessarily on board per se yet, but at least they're, you know, I've sent a few Max Egan things to them where it's just like, you need to understand your own programming and how to, you know, kind of reverse that programming. And so it's just a step-by-step process of planting those seeds, and, you know, hopefully eventually they'll pan out.
Right on. Cool, man. Yeah, that's good advice for sure. And Facebook, love it or hate it, there's people there, so it's a good opportunity to find other people. And then I appreciate what Derrick's doing, is like finding people in those channels. I think I was actually partially responsible for convincing Derrick to come back to Facebook, because there is so many people that he could reach there. But you find them on Facebook or YouTube and then bring them over to the alternatives like Minds and MeWe and BitChute and all that stuff. All right. Thanks, Glass Hand. All right. David Rodriguez, the one, the only, from California. This guy's quite the rebel, stirring stuff up over there with his illegal campfires there on the beach. How you doing, David?
I'm doing good, man. I'm going to turn my video if I can and say hello to everybody.
There he is.
Hey, man, I got to tell you, hey, thanks, John and Derrick, for creating these ideas and putting these solutions out there. The people who are listening and watching, and you guys got to know, you guys are the visionaries, man. You guys believe in voluntary relationships, consensual relationships. My gosh, what's happening is mind-blowing. And so I just want to share the idea that I just solidified the last couple weeks. It's called the power of 2. So the gentleman before is talking about, you know, how do you recruit people? Well, me and my buddy Howard, you might know him as Etienne de la Boeche. He wrote the book Government, the Biggest Scam in History, Exposed. We started doing civil noncompliance on the beaches when they try to say you can't be on the beach. You can be in the water, but you can't be on the beach. And so it was me and him, 2 guys. And we just kind of said, hey, who do we know in the area? Reached out to people. And you said earlier, it's eternal vigilance. And so I think you mentioned the word intergenerational. That is the key thing. I think we didn't get here overnight, and then it's not going to change overnight. However, this is a very desperate move by the state, the criminals, behind the media and behind the state. So they are so hoping that people get this. And also, so start with 2, and then little by little, you guys got to understand what your mission is or what you're actually trying to do. And then when you go out, you can actually talk with people. And I'm kind of a high energy guy, but I kind of stay low energy when I'm talking to people. And I used to say, it's a scam, take off your mask. Now I just say, hey man, aren't you a little bit suspicious of this whole thing? And just kind of ask them a question and see where they're at. If they have, yeah, I'm a little bit suspicious, then I invite them to our bonfire, which I got to get to. I got to get off here. We're going to go to a bonfire tonight, illegally, right? But this is our 11th bonfire in a row. We'll be doing it every week, even if I'm out of town. And what's happened is that we're not asking for our freedom, we're exercising our freedom. And I think what's happened is humanity's evolving beyond statism. And even if they're not on board, if you start talking to them about coercion, talk to them about basic morality, most people are pretty moral people. And also the guy was talking about the guys who knows the police officers. Well, this is the other realization, like I'm no longer trying to fight the cops, I'm trying to recruit them. And Howard started something called the Thick Red Line movement, where he's trying to co-opt these cops openly and say, hey man, the reason that the people don't like you in the community is because you're no longer protecting life, liberty, and property. You're now doing victimless crimes. And so the conversation is that one day, these masks, they're going to turn into mandatory vaccines, as Fauci and Gates have mentioned. So we don't want you guys to be hurt out there in the front line. We know you guys have a difficult job. So consider organizing with your local cops, maybe your union, whatever, and say, we're not going to enforce victimless crimes, because there's got to be a solution. And I feel bad for these guys that, they have to, pay for the mortgage or rent for their family, and everybody's got to work and make money, but you don't have to violate people's rights in order to do that. So there's a couple different solutions right there, but we just got to start one person at a time. You don't got to recruit the world. And then what's so awesome about FedBook, as you guys all mentioned, you get to find people, you get to connect with people and maybe start your own groups, but people are looking for you guys. They're looking for me, looking for John and Derrick, because we are the visionaries. You guys are the ones who realize that coercion is immoral, and voluntary relationship. You guys mentioned mutual aid, a lot of powerful stuff here. Food will be used as a weapon, as Kissinger mentioned, 40, 50 years ago. So these guys know exactly what they're doing. And I just believe in the human spirit is rising up. And you guys got courage to start this thing, to go out there and create the freedom cells. I haven't done mine yet. I'm actually just learning about it, but I think I'll start a cell and see if I can find people and see how we can get together and empower people. I love the decentralization. You mentioned Swarmwise, very powerful. I think I saw holacracy on the comments as well. So the world is decentralizing. And so the more convicted you are about that, the more bold you'll be. And it doesn't matter if your old friends leave you behind. Like me personally, like I left a lot of my status friends behind. I said, I love you guys, but I got to go, man. Like you guys, even my family, it's like, people that you love, you got to say, man, I love you, but there'll be a place for you at my table. And that's my heart. And that's what I'm feeling. Like, come at me in 5 years, because we're moving forward, just like all the guys on this call and you guys. So anyway, I just want to share those ideas. The power to, you don't got to start big, but you are the visionary. Understand that who you are in this whole drama of life is just major, and there's a lot of positivity to bring out of it. So consider those ideas. And I'm just grateful for you guys that, put this together, come out here and lead. And that's really what it's about. Each one of you guys are a leader.
Right on. All right. Thanks, David. Love your energy, man.
Peace,
you guys enjoy the fire. Keep it up over there. David Rodriguez, he's doing a lot of cool stuff over there, shaking it up, and just, it's weird that it's controversial to have a bonfire at the beach in California, but that's where we're at. But these guys are really challenging all that. All right, so we got one more person to hear from, and then we're going to wrap up this call. Thank you, everyone, for sticking with us. This has been great. We had like 81 or 82 people at one point. 67 of you guys are still here hanging out. So super optimistic about the prospects for liberty and what we can do through this network and what people are already doing. All right, Craig, you can unmute yourself. Mr. Craig.
Good evening. How are we all doing?
Hey, we're great.
Basically, I got a message probably about 15 minutes before this actually started. So I'm glad that I arrived here and participated in a little conversation before everything got kicked off. So it's a lot of information, not for me to take, but to understand what's happening out there, really. I'm looking at starting up a community in Costa Rica. I've been thinking about this for years. I mean, a lot of this stuff that's been mentioning, I've discovered years ago. I've been on the internet for 30 years, and trying to share information with others is very difficult. But all you can do is just ask questions and see how they respond. And then you can provide them with some information. Trying to force the information that we have inside of ourselves upon others that are not receptive is just defeating the purpose. But in time, they will change to the other side, because the light that we shine will shine for them to see that we are changing things. We're not following a system that is corrupted, that is greedful, that is down upon society and the people. We've seen it long enough. I was told about it as a child, and look, today, I'm 47, and today still we haven't increased life for the humanity of people. We have been taking it away, destroying it slowly through the processed food that we eat, through the chemicals in the air, through the land that's being destroyed upon us. Yes, we need to do mining. We need to extract our natural minerals from Mother Nature to provide for our existence. But at the same time, we have to care for that. We have to treat it. We have to respect it. And in time, we can have what was supposed to be a heaven on earth. But what we have is we have been dismissing the evil that has been thrown upon us. We have been looking the other way. We haven't been putting ourselves in front and say, hey, don't do that to another person. Stop, that hurts me. We have to be courageous. We have to stand tall with a dignity within ourselves to have to know that the morals and the values that we have and carry, we may not have learned it from our families or from our friends, but we know that there's something wrong with humanity today. And we know that we need to make that change. And we may have to stand by ourselves for a little bit longer, but know that all around the world, there's millions of people stepping up. There's thousands of communities that have started and will start in the future. And as we build together, it will get easier, because we're sharing our light with the world. It's not to say, hey. It's like, hey, how's it going? Well, how are you doing? It's opening up our hearts and our minds to understand another's position, because they're just as frustrated. We were all driven into fear from this COVID. What's going on? And then we start learning some truths. And then we started getting frustrated. And then we started getting angry. And now we're at a point where we got to make a conscious change for a better future for humanity, knowing that some of this evil will have to be destroyed and taken out. The wars no longer have to be, because it's not for oil and it's not for the money. It's just for these guys to remain power over us from having a conscious choice to live our lives as our own individual spirit-like God beings, which is what we all are. It's just that it's not told upon us. We learn it upon ourselves or amongst these small little groups. But as we learn to support one another and discover who we truly are, I am this love, peace, energy that I want to share my creativity so that we can all have a brighter future for ourselves and for our children. And I'm glad that I came upon this site. This is a destiny for us to share and to go forward with the understanding that we're here to support one another. We can be open, honest, and share our frustrations, our fears, our faults, and believe that we can help one another to get past this turbulent time in our history. And it's upon our shoulders now to move forward, knowing that we can make the change that's needed for our world to become a better place for all of humanity. Thanks.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. You're very well-spoken in your prose there, and you're right. It's definitely interesting times, and we have a great opportunity ahead of us to shine bright with love and light and freedom. So thanks for your input, Craig. I want to thank everyone for participating and invite everyone to, if you're not yet on the website, register on freedomcells.org. We've built a pretty cool website there where people can connect, people can check in on the member map to see if there's people in their area. They can form a cell to show others that there's people in the area. And I also want to invite people to join the Telegram group, which has over 150 people. It's always popping. It's a great, just kind of a, like a place where people, a clearinghouse, so people can come in, get introduced and find out where there's others. I also shared, for those of you that are in Texas, we have a Texas Freedom Cells group. And then from there, you can find some of the local cells like DFW. I need to form one for Central Texas. There's one on Facebook. But yeah, I'm super inspired. Again, this just all started off as an idea and it's spread. It's definitely an idea whose time has come, and it's a very powerful idea. And there's a lot of opportunity that we have utilizing this network, this form of social organization that's decentralized, peer-to-peer, no hierarchy, no coercion. I genuinely do believe if we all keep at it, if we're all persistent, and if we remain hopeful and optimistic, we can build a social organization that can provide voluntarily for our wants and our needs, our security, our protection, increase our health, better human flourishing, human thriving. And we can do so and hopefully get the strength and numbers one day to completely opt out of the state and to form a defensive barrier through our network that we have built. So unless D Broze at D Broze Live Free has anything you want to wrap it up for us, Derrick? Thanks again, everybody, for tuning in on the conference call. It's super inspirational, like I said.
Yeah, I just want to remind everybody that to sign up on the website if you're not on there. And we do sit periodically, we haven't done it enough, but trying to get on it regularly, send out a newsletter through the website too. So if you're signed up, like for example, I see a few people asking for the specific link to the Telegram groups and stuff. We can send out a follow-up email that you should look out for, and it'll have the video will be posted on the Conscious Resistance and elsewhere. And we can put all the links and stuff like that. And then of course, you guys are always welcome to create your own groups and let us know about them, and we can help spread the word about those. But thanks everybody who shared.
Right on. Yeah, thanks everyone for participating. Okay, until we do the 6th international conference call, join one of the Telegram groups. And we don't have an event made yet, but there will be it's every Friday. It's a weekly Freedom Cell social Zoom call where people can talk and share ideas. And it's more of a social, less formal type of deal for people to stay involved. So thank you, everyone. Remember, be optimistic. You can manifest this amazing freedom if that's what your focus is and that's what you're building. It's not about tearing things down. It's about building something new, something better. And together we can create the free society that we all deserve. Thank you so much, everyone. We're going to end the call now.